A little structure.
We're recording.
Wait a second. Wait,
Check.
do you have storage space?
Oh, we got storage space. I
Okay.
checked it already.
All right.
We talked about it last time. We need to keep making sure we got storage space for these, so
That's
we don't lose all
important.
our
I'm sure they're
footage.
dense files.
Yeah.
You know,
They're pretty big.
He almost
Yeah.
had a freaking panic attack the other day.
Meltdown.
Yeah, because halfway through it just like kind of stopped. And I was still talking to the guy, and he was just like,
I do notice the points where you guys are like concerned about it, and then Dave is like, wait, like, and then there'll be just a little intermission of just let's
Yeah.
make sure everything's running still.
Yep.
Quick five.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Welcome to David the Dog Trainer podcast. I can't say that fast. The David the Dog Trainer podcast,
That's pretty fast.
episode 16. Here we are.
Awesome.
Today we're joined by Tom and Kay of Lake Erie Dogs.
Hello.
Training and nutrition.
Yes. Thanks for having us. It's
Yeah.
a honor.
We're very happy you're here.
For sure.
Tom and I have known each other for a very long time. We
Decent amount.
worked for the same guy for a while at different times. We worked together for a while, and now we have dog training businesses in the greater Northeast Ohio area.
Yeah.
And we've been fucking going hard at it for a while now.
Quite a
so-
bit.
While I think I'm about to hit 10 years.
That's a long time.
I know.
That's a very long time.
So
How's it feel?
it feels good because like I've always told myself I'm going to keep myself focused on one thing throughout my decade, so to say.
Your decade.
I don't know. I don't know how to put it. But like, really kind of like you, where we kind of really dug into dog behavior and pet dogs. Like,
Sure.
Now I'm kind of starting to think, okay, when I get in my 30s, I'm going to get myself a puppy and actually pick out a way of, doing maybe some form of sport work and that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
I really think I want to expand just like where I'm going with it,
What kind of stuff about that interests you? Like what and actually let me rephrase that. What type of sport interests you?
That's a great question. I've never been much of a into the bite work and stuff, I guess, because it was shoved down my throat.
Just like the more you look at it, it's kind of just like an egotist. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I have a ton of respect for the people that do it, and there are some people out there that do it unbelievably well. And I did it for a little bit with Vinny because it was what I was surrounded with. But like that industry is just full of people that are just people. I'm
and then
hanging
it's
out
really
with.
to me it's kind of sad because you got a lot of younger dog trainers coming in and they think I have to get in competition, I have to get a high-end breed in that kind of stuff, and I didn't really want that getting in the way of what I could give to people, right? But essentially, I really want to get into gun dog work. I've never hunted. I've never done any of that stuff. But with kind of our lifestyle being like, this homestead types, dog training world, around the corner from us, there are just fields of all these hunters during hunting season. And it's really cool. And you see them with German short-haired pointers and labs you see these dogs just running across the street doing their pointing. It's really cool to me. And then the thing that's really cool to me is like, those guys have been doing e-collar work for a long time, and they've really kind of mastered it because, you think about it, they have to make them stay on a place. They're doing the place board work. The dog has to target and have impulse control to not automatically just run out. They can't be scared of guns, and they have to go retrieve an animal and bring it
destroy it.
Yeah.
That's the craziest part about it to me, I think.
and then drop it right at the people's feet. Like they can't go run a celebratory lap around the hunting, grounds and that kind of stuff.
Some of the casting and stuff is really impressive as well. Like when you see some of these guys like be able to direct these dogs just like from like, half mile away and stuff like that on where they need to go. It's really awesome.
Yeah. And I definitely want to get I think I want to go with a pointer for my next dog.
Yeah.
Kay's a little skeptical. We've worked with a few out there, and they're neurotic little goofballs, and I love it.
Sure.
But when you see them even they just catch a scent in the air and you watch them point, it's
a lot of drive.
cute to me almost. Or they're just and that's kind of what I want to go for. I don't want, especially in our setting and what we're trying to do, I don't need to bring a, Malinois into the home situation and try to navigate that, So that's kind
What
of,
just happened? I don't
There
know
we
what
go.
happened there.
We're back.
Oh,
we're back.
that was Vinny.
That's never
using His mind tricks.
He's like, no, Tom, Malinois.
He's like Malinois.
Don't play.
We could hunt too.
That's hilarious. Okay, real quick, before we go any further, why don't you guys actually go ahead and let's start with a little introduction here. All right.
Okay.
So yeah, tell us about yourselves.
Okay.
want
We're Lake Erie Dogs. We train dogs. We do board and trains in our home. We focus a lot on owner education. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Owner education, really taking our time to where we don't, we're not with a bunch of dogs. We're being we're being a little bit more particular. And so we can really put in that work with the dog to have this like lifetime success, because I know you've seen it with other trainers, and a lot of owners see it where it's like, oh, I got my dog trained by like 2 or 3 people, kind of like your clients last week. And, I don't want them to have, and then also like, I don't want them to have to come back to me. We offer lifetime support because it's like, I'm a little grueling about the education to the owners, to where we kind of designed our program recently to where it's one-on-ones before, during, and after the board and train, so that the owner gets this full round education, we do the food work, we do all those kind of like tool work, and I really want the owners to master the tools so that it becomes second nature to them, right? Yeah. And it takes a lot of coaching sometimes. It's exhausting, but we really are trying to just really put that education out there, because I would say that's 90%, in dog training, we know the owner's 90% of the problem or whatever. But at the same time, like you hear a lot of trainers complaining about owners, and
big time,
and I just never want to be that person. I'm like, they're my client. They're the people that have the ignition to ask for my product to help them with their dog. So we have to really give that to them, and I want to teach them. Like,
we also already know they're the problem.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, what is there like we signed up for, just like they signed up for it. We signed up for them being the problem and us not complaining about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But sure, there's certain things that are frustrating, I'm sure sometimes, but like, that's our job to coach them through those things.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're 100% right.
Yeah. And we get really caught up in the dog training too, right? My mom's a teacher. She's a computer teacher, and I think that's kind of interesting to where I've kind of been with developing this, like our system and stuff is like, I want it very systematic to where she is a computer teacher where she teaches you, turn it on, go to this, do that, right? And I want, like I try to help with owners, because we do that with the same dogs where it's like, you need to go through the system of this, and this. And that's how you're going to see that success is the follow through that we give to the dog, and they need to give that follow through. Sometimes they'll sit there and they get really confident. Oh, my dog knows the command. And then you're like, don't repeat it. We have to go through the process and make sure that they can correct themselves, right? And then kind of like, back to kind of like our business and everything. Like Kay said, we're in a home setting. We're really looking to do kind of like a more homestead kind of style.
Yeah.
Kay's really into farming and like, doing all these really cool things. And we just cooped up. We just got some chickens and raised them. And we're like, okay, we're going to incorporate this into working on prey drive with dogs.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of our style. And like, right now it's just me and Kay. Kay came on and she didn't know much about training, and she's definitely been going through the ropes and really
3
like
years now.
willing to, dig into it, which has been really awesome for me to find this beautiful woman like that to do that with. But yeah, and she's really great at doing all the marketing and stuff that I'm just not great at doing the business end of all that kind of stuff.
So do you run most of the social media and stuff? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
That's
say
awesome.
Tom trains dogs. I run a business.
It's true. I get to... it helps because there's that balance there.
Someone has to like fully focus on it. We only
time.
take 2 to 3 dogs in at a time, and I can do certain things, right? Like I've mastered the leash and stuff, but like the psychology end of things, the certain behaviors that's his go-to. So I really run a lot of like client education. We have a Facebook group that I'm really active in.
Is it like a private group for clients and stuff? That's really cool.
Yeah, we talk in there almost every day. And during COVID, we were live like almost every day and like engaging. We're really particular about the kind of person we bring in because it's so intimate. Like we're working with these people one-on-one for 5 weeks at a time. Like I'm talking to you almost every day. Yeah. So we really got to get along, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's very intimate. It's very small scale. We don't want to get any bigger than what we are. I'm comfortable like this. I'd like to hire 1 or 2 people maybe.
Little help with the day-to-day things.
Yeah, somebody I'm comfortable like coming into my home and like I can leave for a weekend maybe. But Never, not
That's
much
been
bigger than that.
Yeah.
Your guys' business model reminds me a lot of Joe and Allie's down in Florida.
Yeah.
Joe Mendez, he I've talked to him about him numerous times. He owns a dog training business in Florida and like a boarding kennel and stuff out of his house, and him and his wife do all of it. Foster Dog Farms.
Okay.
So they're near like Sarasota.
Okay.
But it's same deal. It's very small scale. Like they primarily started as like kind of a boarding business, but Joe has a background in like service dog training. He's from Columbus, so he worked for Pilot Dogs for a little bit, and then started getting into some of the protection sport like IPO stuff and everything. Yeah. And they have a really awesome business model between the two of them, just doing it all out of their house and everything.
Cool.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, your social media that you guys have been doing, like when I first texted him about it, last week, a couple weeks ago, I was like, it's been impressing me so much, just like just how much attention to detail is in it and how much you guys focus on things that it's like, you don't give a shit about all of the fluff involved in it. It's just like, these are the things we care about, and these are the things we want our clients to care about.
Yeah. Authenticity is really important.
And it comes across so well. You know, you guys do such a great job with it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Kay definitely took up the reins on that.
Yeah.
Like I mean, sometimes we don't even discuss posts, and I'm just like, wow, she really knows, she really knows this stuff.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, she really, you should have that confidence because you know the training, you know that psychology because the stuff that you write and all that whatnot.
Yeah.
And with COVID for me last year on social media, I shut down. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't a fan of being on.
Yeah.
And I get the utility of it. I get the point of it. But I guess it just went to such a dark place with how everybody was being about the world to where it was uncomfortable for me to just it was like almost poisonous to my brain.
Negative
It was very draining last year for everybody.
Yeah.
I think. And especially I feel like if you're in a position of a business where like you have to utilize that to some degree, but like you're susceptible to that negativity. It's I think that was really hard for everybody for sure.
And then it gave us the opportunity, that time gave us the opportunity to really dig into our clients to where it was like we were doing, hour and a half lives of, this is how you teach the bed from start to finish with every tool and that kind of thing, so they can really dig into that. Yeah. And they were fun for us. They were exciting.
We loved it. They were
the
really
clients
good
loved it. And and we wanted, it was a nice way of not doing group class, but kind of doing a group class where it was like, okay, I'm just going to work through these dogs and you guys can see it, ask any questions and whatnot.
So you're providing that as like an add-on to like people who had already done programs or people that were currently getting ready to start programs and stuff?
Yeah. All around pretty much.
Every client that signs on gets access to the virtual pack.
Yep.
For a while we were selling it as a separate and then doing Zoom calls. But we're not doing that anymore. And it's just an add-on for all of our clients to go. We have like 40 videos on there of tutorials.
Yep.
And then, just good conversation, good reminders. They get discounts on things like merch and stuff.
Yeah. And then Kay is awesome.
I gotta get one of these hoodies, by the way.
Oh, I got you.
Like
we'll get you one. I appreciate that. We'll trade.
Yeah, we should trade.
Yeah. And Kay's been doing a good job where it's like even like, oh, here's this dog bed on sale for $15. Like she shares that stuff with us, which is awesome for the clients, because they need those things. They need those different that equipment and stuff. So it's been real fun with that.
I think a part of were you gonna say something? Sorry.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna
I
ask.
would say it.
I would love to hear from Josh.
Well, we know your background. You've been 10 years. So what is it? I feel like I asked this for everybody, but so what got you into the same mindset like him with the dog training?
So I went to business school with every intention of owning my own business.
Yeah.
So when I met Tom, we actually met because I was trying to sell him dog treats. I used to make my own dog treats and take them to farmers markets. And I was like, hey, so you're a dog trainer. You want to use my treats for your dog training?
Yeah.
And I mean, it just went from there. But you were doing Lake Erie dog training then.
Yeah.
Lake
You're kind of in and out of that for a long time.
Yeah.
You were
obviously
by yourself.
me just not having a business background. I'm like, I buy an
This is
LLC.
People give me cash.
Again, I was like, I don't know what to do with this. So, so I wasn't great on the business end. And, I was just like a guy that's out in the middle of like Sandusky Bay, just like, I could train dogs and just chill out, have like a really laid back life. And I was enjoying it. But it caught up to me, and that's where David, reached out. He's like, hey, how's it working? I'm like, not good. So that's where I went to work for David for a while. And then and then I guess it was just kind of with us building our relationship and stuff. Mm-hmm. She got a job at like a grooming facility and whatnot. And they were asking for someone to be there 24/7 because it was a open cage. This is terrifying to talk about. The open cage facility. And,
So they wanted me to like manage the grooming business and the overnight boarding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And me being the sucker in love was like, okay, I'll come do that with you.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare.
It
was a
nightmare.
nightmare.
That's right.
Yeah. But so we did that, and then that wasn't great. So we were like, we just open it together. Like I saw how amazing he was with dogs, and it's a true skill, true talent. So I was like, yeah, I'll invest in going into business with you and drop all of my things, and we just did, and it's been working. I mean, it's just been rolling with the punches ever since, and it's going really great. So
okay, I mean, and it seems like you've had like an interest in the dog world anyway, because you were already like selling treats.
Yeah, nutrition was like my thing.
Yeah.
Prior, so. That's where training and nutrition
comes in.
Yeah, yeah. So when we first started dating, that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
When we first started dating, that's when I started making my own dog food, and I was like doing DIY raw, and learning all about that, absorbing everything. It wasn't so mainstream as it is now. That was like 5 years ago.
Probably 4
or 5 years ago. So I was, really immersed in that, and we got away with that. It got away from that because we got so busy with the business. I still feed raw, but I don't make it myself anymore because that is a whole thing.
Yeah. It seems like so much work.
It's a lot of work if you're going to do it right.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it right. So, and I applaud people who do. You know what I mean? That's awesome. But that's what really got me into it. And then, I have my heart dog that I got at 21 before I knew anything about dog training. And Tom's helped me a lot with Sasha, and we've fixed our relationship a lot. And that, it just changed everything. Like I thought we traveled the country together, me and my dog, like I thought we were really good. Like we were really set.
Yeah.
But it's just gotten better. And it's crazy to see how she's 5 now. And like, if this was when she was 2, where we could be now, like it's really, really cool. So, my passion with the whole thing is seeing the owners like eyes light up when their dog does something, or like they recall and they're like, oh my God, she did it. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you can do it too. Like you can do all of these things, and you can do it. Like teach them that. Like we're here to show you how to do it yourself, and like continue on with this. Yeah. Like we do magical things sometimes, and they're like, oh, how'd you teach the dog to do that? But like you can do it too. Yeah. And that's like my passion with it, is showing people how to like build that relationship with their dog,
That is the coolest thing, is watching, like whether you're doing one-on-ones or follow-ups in a board and train or whatever, it's just that week by week progress of the owner, right? And how their timing improves with things, how certain things that may be so scary. Like we have some clients that like have dogs that are just like so out of control that, every first 3 session they come in first and they're like, hey, I just want to like make sure the coast is cleared and we can bring our dog, and then they start just like coming in and just getting their dog under control and stuff. And you see how much more proud they get like from those little experiences, which is really cool. Yeah. Okay. We bounced around there for a little bit here. what was I getting ready to, God damn, I had a question I forgot to write down there a second ago. That's a good one. Yeah. Okay. So the virtual pack stuff you guys do, very cool. So that's a private group that all your clients have access to that has tutorials, videos, topics, engaging conversations, lives, things like that, right? That's really cool. So something Josh and I have talked about all the time is how, one, overlooked, whether you're doing it on social media or a private group or whatever it may be, but how overlooked some of the content that people need to put out is, because a lot of people look at, I feel like, content in social media and YouTube and all of that as like for gathering new clients, right? So we're putting it out there to try to attract new business to bring in. And even we, I feel like, had the wrong idea with that for a little bit, where a lot of the content we were putting out was with the intent of, does this look impressive enough to draw new people in? But once you start to realize that all of that stuff you're putting out is to keep the clients with you and to keep them engaged and a part of that pack or a part of that family or community or whatever it is, I feel like you really start winning with it. And that's what starts separating some of the businesses where people go from trainer to trainer to trainer to they are a part of your network like indefinitely forever, right? Because I'm sure people that train dogs with you guys 3 years ago that still have access to that, if they start having issues and then start seeing you post about those issues, they know, oh, I don't need to reach out to somebody else because something I'm doing is probably incorrect here, and I could probably either get my information through these videos on how to solve those problems or reach directly out to them to get that help. And that's something we found over and over again is a piece of content that we put out or a clip from the podcast or whatever it may be will spark a old client to reach back out and be like, hey, that thing you were talking about, you know, that kind of resonates because that's something I've been having issues with over the last 6 months or whatever it may be, 100%. You know? And that has become that was the shit. When I realized that, I feel like that was the shifting point on how much I wanted to invest into that type of media that I was putting out.
Yeah.
You know?
That's a big deal for us, is like our community.
Yeah. And I would say 90% of the people that are commenting or liking our Instagrams and all that, it really is it's past our clients, our current clients, you know. And, you know, directing, being able to go in depth with the information is what's really important, is because when you know you're going towards them versus like the general public, you're like, oh, there's only so much I could say there. You know,
you can speak in a different way because they already understand some of the language. They've already gone through it. 100%.
Yeah. So. It makes it really easy for me because I don't know how to exactly explain things from start to finish, but we can have a conversation because we've taught you how I look at things, like how I perceive it. So
and like it's nice too, because what happens is you do get that client that might reach out and be like, hey, I'm struggling with this. You know, can I get a follow-up lesson? And I'm just like, well, first, I want you to check these out, practice it, and let me know where you're at. And 90% of the time, they don't text me back because they're just like, either they went and worked on it, or they'll let me know that it worked and that helped them out, and, you know, giving them that direction as much as possible, especially with how we're limited to just us. Time. You know, like it's hard, you know, we don't have, you know, employees to do those lessons for us, where it's like, I back everything up on Sunday, you know, that's my lesson day.
Sure.
And, you know, it gives me that ability to like be able to focus on everybody at focus on everybody at the same time, while not like investing so much of our mindset on each client too much. That's like, you know, pulling us down or anything like that, you know?
It's almost a little hack, you know? Like when you have all that out there, it helps you in so many different ways, but it also saves you so much time, you know? Because it's like, okay, cool. Well, if somebody has a question about something, I have 17 videos that answer it in detail that I could just send you.
And it's likely like 4 other people are struggling with that same thing.
Big time.
So whenever anybody's like really reaching out and it's like, I need a follow-up lesson, I'm like, that's a virtual pack thing. Like we're going to talk about that, because if it's that much, like somebody 100%. Else is struggling with that.
Yeah. You start to notice, even when we were doing like the weekly Q&As and stuff like that, we would notice the similarities in questions, and you would really get an idea of like, these are the things that people really need information on.
Real life.
Right? Like not all this other like bullshit or fluff. You know?
Yeah. There's a lot
of fluff.
A lot of fluff. A lot of fluff.
That's hard.
That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, from a very, very broad goal that, you know, I've talked about having for a while now, is really making sure we're starting to unsaturate the dog training business from the standpoint of people feeling like they need to go from place to place to place to place. And the other day I was even making the correlation in my head between like vet clinics, for example, right? Like there are numerous vet clinics out there, obviously, like thousands and thousands of them just within a 30-mile radius of you probably, right? And people that go to their vet clinic know that that vet, for the most part, is going to be able to help with that issue and feel comfortable knowing they're not wasting their money with those things, and that they're going to get their shot and get this and get that, right? and we're not talking about obviously a behavior standpoint. We're just talking like, oh my God, my dog broke his leg, or oh my God, you know, he's got a goopy eye or whatever the fuck, right? I know you guys have your holistic opinions on things. Right? So,
no, you're great. You're good.
But anyways, so it's kind of a standard that you get a dog, you find a vet that you like, right? And you go to that vet for your basic veterinarian needs, right? Dog training should be like that, right? It should be like, I get a dog, I find a dog trainer that I like, and that dog trainer is going to be able to help me with all of my dog's basic needs for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Right? And unfortunately, it's turned into quick little money grab, quick little money grab, quick little money grab, and no long-term care or like preventative measures in place to make sure that you live a happy life with your dog. And I really want to start to change that industry and expose the people that are doing it correctly, right? And offering that like you guys are, or offering it like Joe in Florida is, or any of these other people that we've had on the podcast or talked about before. You know? Because those are the people that are going to help these people stay successful long-term and help to build a better name for the dog training community.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
100%.
And like I said, that's why I'm really happy to have you guys on, is because I think you guys are fighting that good fight.
We appreciate that. So. And that's interesting that you mentioned, like, you know, where you're trying to find that vet early on and that kind of stuff, because we've been getting left and right. We get people that are like, I don't have my dog yet, but like, can we? And I'm like, we're going to work till they get to 6 months. And once they get to 6 months, we'll do the board and train, but we'll spread out lessons till then.
Sure.
But, you know, because I think that imprinting and the owner trying things first and working, I'm not doing your potty training. I'm not like doing your puppy stuff, because you can do that.
And those are also things you have to do.
Yeah, that's,
you know what I mean? Like I can't potty train your dog for you, right? That's one of the that's one of those ones that we'll have people call us, and not so much anymore, but we used to have people call us all the time just saying, I literally can't potty train my dog. I want to send my dog to a 5-week board and train. And I'm just like, I promise you that will not fix your problem. I'm literally not going to sell it to you. I will sit on the phone for 30 minutes right now with you, and I will tell you exactly how to create a potty structure for your dog, where you should be passing in a week, right? But I will not do that for you. I cannot do that for you. Right?
Tom won't even do that. He's like, here's a book. Read it.
Yeah. I really like, you know, what I usually say to them, I'm like, you bought an animal. Yeah. You are domesticating it, teaching it to live inside a human area. That is your role, to domesticate the animal, not mine. Like, if you want to do that, that's your responsibility, right? But yeah, I don't know how to say Ted's last name, but do you know Davidthedogtrainer or something like that? He's up in Canada, but he has a really good, like...
What's his name? Sorry.
Mango Dogs.
Mango Dogs?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
He has a really decent, like, 40-page...
pamphlet almost. It's a book.
$10 book on Amazon. And, like, he has a lot of great...
ebook.
Yeah, and there's just, like, you know...
There's, like, schedules and explanations, and it's, like, everything that's in there, like... I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes, just go buy it.
And it talks about the crate training and all that kind of stuff, to where it's like, you try that and, you know, like, it should help you. You know, I'll give them suggestions on top of it, but I'm just like, it's a 40-page, very easy read book. And if you can't read that book for your dog for potty training, like, you might not be the best to train your dog. You know, like, because it's going to be a lot of work. So,
yeah. But that's cool. I think a lot of those basic things, like, you know, it's a part of that learning process of just coaching them through that. And you are right about, like, if you can't make this an initial, like, you know, 2 hour long investment in like learning about these things for your dog, how are you going to retain the 17 gazillion hours of training I give you post training?
Exactly.
So it's all about the people.
It is. It is. And they do a great job at it. You know, anybody that usually signs up, you know, I think it's really important that
we make it really clear, like, this is going to be a lot of you, you know.
And you guys kind of talked about it on one of them, where you get to that point where it's like you find your niche, and you can start getting particular about your clientele. And I think we're getting to that point where it is like, okay, you know, there's just some people
that don't want people to, like, throw money at me, train my dog.
I always like to say,
not what it is.
Me being an Italian, coming from a large Italian family, I'm just like, you know, like, oh, your family, you know, kind of like attitude towards them. Like, once we work together, you know, that kind of stuff where it's, you know, cool. Sometimes, like, we get a lot of clients where it's like we're hanging out, you know, going out and that kind of stuff. I know you have those relationships, and it's great to have that with clients, you know. You know, it means that they trust you, and, you know, they should have that
I think some of this goes hand in hand with, so I've talked before about like just my staff, for example, and how each one of them lives a very different type of life with their dog, or dog ownership to them means something very different from person to person, right? Whether some are really involved in the rescue community, some of them have significantly more like intimate kind of relationships with their animal, or some of us just like kind of like the idea of having dogs around, but it's kind of just that, right?
Yeah.
You guys have a very particular way of life with your dogs. Like you guys said right at the beginning, it's kind of that holistic homestead, really active, engaging role with your dogs, right? And I think that you have to look at some point, like if I live with my dog in X way, does this owner want to live that same kind of life with their dog? And if they don't, my approach is completely centered around living that type of life with my dog. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So that makes total sense to me of, the clients that come in where it's like they need to be have that kind of hungry personality of wanting to like get information and learn about this and learn about that and start applying those things on their own for it to be successful, because that's how you guys do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely, what you guys do is great. That's why I refer you out to where like our aggression and like fearful cases. Anytime someone says like, oh, the dog bit somebody or bit another dog, I'm like, all right, you're going to David. First off, because we just, we want to have a family. We don't want, dogs like that coming in and out of our house kind of thing, because it could get dangerous, right?
Of course.
But the big thing is, like, I always like to say, my dog's not my business, right? And our dogs, yes, they follow that structure, but they could still be, do whatever. But the main thing is with those, like, our board and trains, it's like, I like the home setting because it's like, people are like, my dog's barking out the window. I'm like, great, I have a window on my house. Like, let's do that, right? Where I'm sure there's kind of those, you got to find those distractions that you apply when you're working in a facility, right?
Sure.
Where it's just like, you be a dog, be you. And like in this home setting, and we're going to address the actual problems. The owners, like, you're going into my kitchen trash, or you're begging me while I'm cooking dinner, and those kind of things. Yeah. And we can use those training tools and like the training to navigate that household setting for them, a lot. And I love doing that. It's fun.
Yeah. It's a little less of a controlled environment. So you're going to be presented with all sorts of different types of things, which I think is cool.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely been a lifestyle choice, because you still have to have a lot of structure with them and everything,
Yeah, especially when you have that many dogs. I mean, you were talking about at the beginning, I think the stress of like having like, dogs in your care like 24. So like you can't really escape it. I think you said like when you were working at that last place, like your first day off was when you proposed to her.
I had to like really have it, like sit down with the boss and be like, listen,
we both have to leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
there's no way
around it. You need to figure
it.
this out.
Yeah. And then that definitely comes with my issue with authority, to where like I've kind of had traumatic situations as authority when it comes there, and past bosses to where it definitely, having that freedom for us, it's huge. There are definitely days where you can like let it, you are like, I want to let it go, like, oh, I'm in my house, I can sit back, relax, that kind of thing. But then there are those days where it's like, we need that, and it's cool because it's like, okay, I could still put a dog in a bed stay if I need to chill out or do something, right? We can still do those things and live our life. And like, everybody has that dream of being like, having that freedom and enjoying their life. And I there's that whole don't work to retire, right? And I'm not trying to do that in this lifetime kind of thing,
For sure.
That's important.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so you'd mentioned at the beginning, you guys do currently like a before, a during, and an after kind of set of lessons. I'm really curious about the before. What kind of things do you cover in like, say, a before lesson?
Yeah.
So how many lessons do you do before? Typically just one or
two?
Depends on how booked out we are, but probably two.
Yep.
Yeah. So first off, if they're having any real behavioral issues, like we'll go right in and start trying to manage it till the board and train, because we do get booked out pretty quickly.
That's huge.
So
man. I mean, like some people, like they just literally can't wait, right? Like there's certain things where it's like, I need to like at least have a way to work through this in the next month.
To have you be able to just find a way to navigate it, making sure they're doing all the management in the meantime, right? And kind of I go through my training tools and my different forms of reinforcement and that kind of stuff. So like, we do working for kibble, right? Like we follow that. That's kind of like a barbelling kind of concept where it's like, just get the dog to work for their food every day, right? Because you have over 100 opportunities to reward them for something, right? Yeah. So I get owners getting in that mindset, you know, and making sure the dog can take their kibble out of their hand.
Yep.
Because like a lot of dogs are like, what are you trying to do here, right? And you know, like, so it's a curve, and you know, I noticed at first when I was trying to start that off, and this is where, like, you know, some dogs I would just have to start with the leash because they weren't taking food, right? And that's where, like, food is a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
To where I just make sure that they could just have some reinforcement, reward the dog for the right choices, and they're not giving them like fancy treats, overstuffing them for those kind of things, right? Because we do get a lot of those younger dogs, right? To where, you know, you could teach them the right choice right away. Yeah. Like, start doing that, right?
It's crazy how much easier it would be if people just like I want to dive into it in a little bit here, a little bit more of the working for food side of things.
I love it.
That is such a conversation in this world, is like figuring out how do we balance that, you know?
Yeah.
And what people are doing like so wrong that's just like inhibiting our ability to like ever do that, you know? Like
once it's hard when you get that eval and they're just like, oh, they free feed, and I'm like,
we're stopping that right
we got a long way to go.
Totally.
So and then what happens during the board and train, like I kind of look at it like, okay, this is, you know, because as you know, the leash and e-collar are very paired together. Like, you have to understand one to understand the other.
Big time.
Okay. So I take that time in really teaching them about pressure and how that pressure and release works during the board and train, where we go for like a midway walk, and I make sure they have, you know, we go for a 2-mile walk. We like really push them. We're just like, all right, you're going for a 2-mile walk, no matter what, client, kind of thing. And we really push them to like understand that leash handling and give them that system of, you know, during the board and train, the system of just like the leash alone. Because, you know, the e-collar is great, but so for that e-collar to work, the dog really has to understand the leash, and so does the owner.
Yep.
So we take that time to go over that stuff. And then finally, once you get to like the after lessons, it's e-collar and management. Like, what do you do there, you know, in those kind of situations? And it really sets the dog up to where the point when they go home, the owner's like, Kay's like pushing me out the door after the take home, because we do it in their home, and she's like, all right, you're done. You got it. They got the message. They're going to do great. Like,
how long do you typically do in that send home?
For this, most of our lessons end up being like an hour and a half to 2.
Yeah.
Right. Which is fine. I like talking a lot too much, you know, the clients. So.
Well, it's an interesting way to split it up, where you're not totally overwhelming the owner with information.
Yeah.
And especially if you're taking the dog, then, you know, like, and all that information that before, they're probably gonna be sitting there like thinking on that, and not have the additional distraction of like wanting to sit down and try all of it.
Yeah. Exactly. And, you know, we just had the issue of like, not so much an issue, but just like, one-on-ones just never sit with me right, so to say, alone.
Sure.
I don't know, where it's just like, I always felt that there just wasn't enough for the client. And I was just like, I just kind of felt like I was wasting my time, because a lot
when
of
you say not enough for them, what do you mean by that?
How do I put this?
Like a whole picture.
Yeah, like
we can only get so much in, and like...
Sure.
It comes on their reliability. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You know, it comes on the owner being like, okay, I'm going to commit to this and do the work. And then it's like, you know, you go to the lessons and you're like, okay, did you do this, this, and this? And they're like,
understood.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, okay, the bigger program, like, you're going to have that commitment. And I find a lot of people were like, oh, the one-on-ones are cheaper, so obviously I'm going to go. You do see that a lot, where we're just like, I'm going to go that route. And, you know, we kind of needed to manage our time a little bit more better. So that's where it's like, you know, we can really dive deep into with everybody and build that relationship. And it's been really great.
I think especially when you start getting, well, in the conversation of one-on-ones, when you start getting into, again, the type of training you guys do, and having it be very, very reward-centered, and a lot of like lifestyle changes and stuff like that, like literally, if they don't do the homework for 1 week, it throws everything off.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
And that's always been the one thing that I would agree that I don't like as much about the one-on-ones, is you do have to some extent rush things a little bit more, or push the dog a little faster than
I felt like, you know, sometimes there are those one-on-ones where you're like, this is just, you kind of feel bad for it, because it's just like, I really had to push that dog to give the owner this result, and I'm just not a fan of that, because it's like,
well, especially when you could be a little bit more selective, like in your guys' case of doing those types of things. You know. So that makes total sense. Very cool. Did you have something else you were going to say?
I just, owner motivation has been like motivating owners to do things.
Yep.
That's been a learning curve for me, is like, I don't want to I don't want to speak down to you, but at the same time, like you got to do this. Like I got to push you.
How do you be their cheerleader?
Yeah.
And that's where
coaching's been huge. Like learning about how to coach people.
Yeah. I've been really, I don't know if you have any book suggestions, but I've really been digging into that coaching and teaching. Like when I go to the bookstore, I'm looking at those sections, like education and stuff, because like, you know, I always make sure that each thing we're teaching, we have you have the 4 different types of learning. You have a way that they can watch it. You know, they can hear me talk about it. They can get hands-on. And what's the other one?
Read.
You know, they can read about it in the sections above the videos where we go into detail with that. Yeah. And like, that's important. No one learns the same. And it's all, you know, that's where some trainers might not be putting out enough content for their clients because like, some people need those videos.
It's the wrong medium.
Yeah, because like you'll limit to yourself just to like hands-on and talking in lessons, and sometimes that's really hard for a lot of people to pick up because so much is going on.
That's a lot of the reason why we started a Patreon, is because we're putting so much time into those posts, and I mean the content that's in the virtual pack. I mean, some of it can stand alone, and it's just good information because you can see it, you can read it. We're gonna explain it like 5 times, so. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I dig that a lot. I do have some good recommendations for you. I'll show you.
I know.
Downstairs.
You're big. Some good books.
Yeah, I think motivating clients, one of the things that has really helped me a lot with it is, and something I feel like I'm telling the trainers all the time, is figuring out like what is the real reason why they hired you in the first place, right? And if you can get to the root of like what is the problem they're having, what do they need solved, and try to figure out the most direct route to getting to that, I feel like the quicker the client can see some degree of success with being able to manage that better or see how that program is going to evolve and shift into that, the more motivated they are to get there. You know what I mean? Is feeling confident that thing, because everybody hired you for a reason, right? Even those people that are just like throwing money, like, hey, train my dog, right? They still have one problem they need solved. And if we can get them to understand how to get to that, right? And how everything leads to that, they're going to stay motivated.
Yeah.
You know?
That's 100%. And that's usually like in our evals. What I do, I'm like, all right, this is our program. Now we're going to talk about your dog.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you every detail to how we're going to fix it. And you can take that information with you, which if you probably won't do much with it, or you know, you can really figure out who's the motivated client, because once I tell them what the solution is going to look like, you know, they're interested, right? But then there are those some people that like you could literally write it out for them, and I tell people, I'm like, have a notepad ready, like write this stuff down. I'll tell you how to do it, right? And you can like. I mean, I think that's kind of like a fun thing to what I do with exploring with where their mindset's going to be at, right? Is this person going to be committed to it or not? And I'm not going to like short them on what that process is. Because when you have people with reactive or, you know, like even in your case, aggression dogs, you do need that commitment. Because if they're not, like if you're not maintaining the reactivity and managing it and like doing the practice around and the basics and foundations around it, like down the line, they're going to suffer, you know, and I don't want to see that. Right.
But yeah, both the dog and the owner, you know, like everybody is going to, if you're not kind of committed to that process. So yeah, that's definitely an interesting thing. Okay, cool. So jumping into working for food stuff here.
Okay.
Tom, what are the biggest, Tom and Kay, I'm sure you know quite a bit about this as well, obviously. What are the biggest things people are doing wrong that is inhibiting the ability to work for food? And why is it so important to teach the dog to work for their food?
You go first.
Loaded.
I have some.
Loaded.
I have some. So if you say them,
all right, I'll kind of start it off this way, and I'm going to give a little credit out to like the Napopo community, because I definitely learned a lot of this from them. Like when I went out to Chicago and saw Pat Stewart.
When did you go out there?
Right before COVID.
It was recent. I was going to say, I remember him
right before
advertising.
COVID.
Okay, real quick, before we get into that, Patrick Stewart, I don't know much about him, but I've seen his name pop up all the time talking about the Napopo.
Do you know what Canine Paradigm podcast is?
No.
Okay. Well, the Canine Paradigm, they interview people. Everybody.
Sure.
Like they're really good. They are like they're more of the IACP like central podcast. He's part of that podcast with Glenn Cook, and they're out of Australia.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. So Joe in Florida has told me all the time about, so they're based out of Australia.
Yeah.
Okay. He's told me all the time about them. Yeah, he said it's a wonderful podcast.
It really is enjoyable. I mean, they've had Bart on there like twice. But yeah, like Pat's one of those students from Bart that like really dug into the system and kind of has its variations, which is great to see, right? But essentially, working for food is the concept of like, out in the wild, genetically, dogs, like their ancestors, they weren't like, an animal didn't go up to them and just like, die and just say, eat me, it doesn't work out that way. There is a process to where they had to hunt and they had to put all those needs to work. They had to scavenge, put their scent to work and all that kind of stuff. So we could tap into that genetics, and we're really into that whole like biological fulfillment aspect where dogs, like, owners aren't doing enough. And where you're talking about like going for the walk, staying in the house and having a backyard isn't a life, right? Mm-hmm. So, that's where I think it's first off really important, because you could have a very simple way to engage with your dog and you could begin to ask them to do things. Okay. Second off, the way a lot of owners are kind of messing this up is either free feeding, where they just put the food down and the dog just eats it all in one sitting, or it's just there all day because it's just like a pile of cash. They could just keep picking at it. Right. Mm-hmm. And then there's
the trust fund, baby.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's like, your high value treats where, people are buying these like fancy treats and like stuffing up their dogs with tons of calories and that kind of stuff to get them to do real basic things like, oh, you came in from outside, right?
Yeah.
So, or just like, I'm in the kitchen, let me grab the biscuit and make you sit, right? Yeah. And it's like, first off, like there's a point to obedience. You have to be using it, right?
Sure.
But the idea is you're using their basic energy source to get them to listen to you. Mm-hmm. Like they need to eat. They need that food, right? Mm-hmm. So why don't we use that instead of high quality treats? And, a bowl has up to 300 pieces of kibble at least in it. And that's 300 opportunities to reward your dog for each thing. That's
Is that
like,
how many pieces of kibble are in a bowl of food?
I never counted, but
That seemed like a very exact number.
No. I think that's more of like a pat state. That's more of like a pat statement. Okay. Like I'll give him credit that I just always pulled the 300 because he said that. But again, like that level of reinforcement that you can offer the dog, and it's like and the nice thing is like during COVID and everybody's home, right, with their dogs, and they're like, I'm having these problems, and it's like, okay, well, you can just begin to ask them to do things, and I think that's the biggest issue. Is a lot of owners don't reward their dogs like early on for the right choices, right? It's when they become problematic and they're like, oh, I'm going to try to start using food for this situation, and it doesn't work. And then it's like in those situations where, like, let's say it's reactivity and stuff, the dog doesn't care about food. Mm-hmm. But if they were working for just basic kibble every day, and then that time where all right, we're going to deal with like your reactivity and I'm trying to get your attention, then the Howies comes out, that's like $1 versus a $50 bill. And they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And I and again, I kind of have fun with it because, it gives us like a real kind of daily structure kind of thing where it's like, you're constantly working them in everyday life. Mm-hmm. We're getting dogs come in. Yes, come in. Like I'm saying, like come in from inside and I'll reward you for it. And like, people are like trying to chase their dogs in their backyard and cornering them and having those big issues where it's like, again, to start rewarding your dog when you ask them to do something. And that's where like work for food really comes into play. And it's nice. So that's kind of.
I think you hit it everything.
Okay. I'm trying to think of anything else.
No, it was really good. Yeah. So, what's really interesting to me is, when I go feed my dogs, for example, right? There are almost zero things out there that create more engagement and more excitement than mealtime.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right? Like, and my dogs, obviously, especially since they're not free fed, they don't get treats or anything like that. Like mealtime is like it, man. They are pumped. They know that routine. They know when I'm getting ready to go feed them, when I go to walk for that gate that goes down into the basement, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I mean? Like, so you could look at that degree of engagement, right? That you're able to get out of such a simple task like feeding your dogs.
That you do every day.
That you do every single day with your dog, 2 times a day, sometimes 3 times a day, right? And then you look at how much people struggle with getting their dog's attention over such minute little bullshit things throughout their day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you look into, like, logically speaking now, like removing dog trainer mind for a minute, like, why can't I achieve that same mindset elsewhere?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why can't I get my dog to come inside to me in a situation like this? And here's the thing. You have the other side of the equation, which is the consequences and the dog understanding they have to do all of these things, which is another conversation. But the basics of you hit the nail on the head of like, if you teach your dog to do these things from a young age and you start off with all of the building blocks like this in place, you eliminate 90% of the battle later on because you've spent the time just actually teaching. You know what I mean? And getting the dog to understand all these different types of things, right? And I feel like as somebody, you know, you and I have similar backgrounds when we started in dog training from the standpoint of a lot of motivation, right? Like teaching dogs to really enjoy the process of learning and working. And unless you have that type of, I feel like kind of experience in the dog training world, you don't realize just how beneficial it can be.
It's insane.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's unbelievable. That's the one thing I will always put towards like, you know, a lot of the competitive dog trainers and sport dog world and stuff like that is they get it. They get how to create motivation in a dog. And it's a matter of finding that balance of how do we generalize that to the pet dog world in a way where your day-to-day owner is not going to have to turn into a dog trainer. They're not going to have to do 3 hours of training a day with their dog, but they could still leverage a lot of those same techniques and stuff to their advantage. Right.
Yeah.
I had a trainer one time tell me like, you know, why would you spend all of this time building food drive and quote unquote starving dogs, you know, to get them to develop this food drive when all they want is to be pet. And
I hope that's on camera. It's just like, oh God.
All they want is and that's now looking at this from like snobby dog trainer, like giving their 2 cents where it's not warranted to like actually breaking that down. There is no way on the face of the planet a dog will ever be as motivated by food and that biological need that they have to being scratched on the head.
Exactly. Like, I 100% agree on that.
You know,
point, where it's just like owners really lose like what the reward really is to the dog. And Ivan Balabanov, you know,
Labanov?
Yeah.
Is that it? I don't know.
I've seen him and it was hard to either way, like even after meeting him.
Ivan's out here starting some shit. I don't know if you've been following him.
Yeah, I love it. But you know, and he's like one that's all about motivation. Like he doesn't work with food. He works with toys because he's like in that sport dog world. But at the end of the day, he makes a good point. Like dogs determine what the reward is, and if you know,
the
not
dog
you
decides what's reinforcing or aversive.
Yeah,
right. In general, right.
Yeah. It's like they 100% decide that, and you have to figure out what's the right way for that particular dog at the time, right? And then like another thing where it's like people think you're starving the dog. It doesn't. This way doesn't really work like that too. Like I really like the concept of how they operate, how working for food operates. It's not so much like, okay, you didn't eat, I'm just waiting till the PM to feed you, right? It's more so like you're running a restaurant. The restaurant's open right now. If the dog drives by and wants to eat, he can come in and eat. But if he doesn't, the restaurant might be closed later. Yeah. And then you could kind of keep reapproaching and like throughout the day, every couple like 20 minutes or up to an hour, and then reoffer it to them. You don't have to starve them because at some point they're gonna be like, I want to eat.
That's the beauty of doing it at home too.
And I think the key with no matter what way you're doing it, whether you're doing like meal in the morning, if you don't eat it, you don't get it. Meal in the evening, if you don't get it, you don't get it. Is understanding what the appropriate portion is for the food. I mean, that's the key with it. You know.
That's real interesting. I had a client, one of my virtual clients, where they've. You know, I was just like, okay, their dog isn't motivated for their kibble and stuff. And she's like, she worked a little bit for the morning. And I'm like, how much are you feeding in a day? And when I saw the dog, I was like, it's a very fit, self-regulated dog.
Yeah.
And like, she was already 2 cups down in this food. Like our dogs, if they're not eating raw, they only need 1 cup because it's like a super rich. So like that dog already hit its 2 cups for the day, and like then the dog wasn't motivated, and I'm like, that's because the portions are just
we're feeding off the bag recommendations, and I'm like, this is how we calculate calories. Like we're gonna talk about it,
and that's where Kay comes in fantastic, because like there's sometimes where we find that the dog's not taking their kibble, and we're like, okay, this is weird, and then you figure out like the dog's body doesn't want it because it's not nutritiously value, like there's no nutritional value for the dog when they're when owners bring us like Iams or like really cheap stuff, and then you could tell, and then we give them like we use Nature's Logic, real great brand on Chewy, and when you give that to them, they're like, okay, I'll eat Like, and it's like, wow, you know, and that's where we don't think about health either. And that's where Kay is great in that aspect of really attending to that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how did you start learning about the nutrition side of things with the dogs?
I think my first course was like Dogs Naturally magazine.
Yeah.
That's where I started. And then books. I've just read numerous books. Right now I'm taking a canine first aid class from a vet in the UK. And it's really cool because in the UK they do a lot of things holistically. And so that's cool. I mean, over time I've just kind of brought things in. We like to do a lot of holistically, and I'm really into herbs and things like that. Herbs. And herbs. Okay. But I mean, I look at a dog as like an animal, you know, and I've learned like the basic biology of a canine, and the common pet dog owner doesn't understand their dog in that way. I mean, we get people who are like,
I don't think I understand my dog.
You know, I mean, we get owners who are like, I feed him green beans. Is that okay? Like out of the can. Oh, sorry. I feed them green beans and like these things, and I'm like, you know, they'd really like this, and this would help with that situation, and you can do it on a daily basis and be proactive. And then we like in the eval, we look at every dog's food, and I ask like, how much are you feeding? Okay, how much does your dog weigh? Do you think they're overweight? Let's consider changing that up, and I show them how to calculate calories and how to decide, okay, how many calories does your dog need to sustain? How many calories does your dog need to lose weight? And a lot of times, I mean, you change up a food, you can see a lot of behavior differences. You know, I mean, we don't get too many older dogs, but with this older dogs that we have gotten, aches and pains are irritating. You know, like it's no joke.
Yeah, they are.
So I recommend a lot of like natural supplements, you know, like anti-inflammatories can really change a dog's life. So, I mean, I just love it. I'm really into it. I love learning about it. Anything that I can consume about it, I do.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you get into the correlations between, you know, the dog's diet and their actual behavioral issues that they have too. You know, I used to talk about if I ate McDonald's every single day of my life, you know, I'm going to be groggy and irritable and lash out and want to sleep all the time, be lazy, all sorts of stuff like that, right?
It's kind of a requirement signing on with us. Like if we make a suggestion, I'm willing to talk to your vet about it, but I'm not going to take a dog in that's eating chow. You know what I mean? Like it's a waste of my time if the machine I'm working with isn't being oiled. Yeah. Like I'm not going to do that.
And so I work part-time at like a pet store right now, and hey, in 2 weeks I'll be fully on my own though.
Nice.
But,
Congratulations.
That's that small business success.
It's really something.
But
that feeling.
I started there in November just because like COVID sucked, and as a food photographer during a pandemic, it was a wonderful time.
It's rough.
But but just seeing how little people know, because I work at Pet People,
so which is a really nice store. They have high quality brands.
Exactly. They like have the thing like, we don't want this junk, we want where the first ingredients meet, you know, blah, blah, blah. But people go in there and they have no freaking clue what they're doing, you know. They'll go in and we'll ask, well, what's your dog do? Oh, well, you know, just older dog, just lays on the couch, doesn't do anything, and they'll get this like dense protein, high fat, you know, like made for like a dog that's highly active, and it's like no. You shouldn't do that. But it's just so crazy to see how there's such a disconnect. You know, it's always been just, I buy the bag. Yeah, I buy the bag of dog food.
But at the same time, those
or you just fill the bowl up. You know, I
just
fill the bowl
measurements.
up.
Can we talk about measurements?
We're getting there because I'm not done with this work for food topic yet.
Okay.
We're gonna get back. We're gonna swing back around.
I'm enjoying all this.
We're here all day. This is a really, really important conversation, and this is something that we really push on our clients as well. Is because here's the thing. I mean, listen. You know this. We have numerous ways to train a dog, right? I can do it without food. I don't want to have to do it without food, right? The more motivated the dog is, the funner the process is for everybody, you know? But anyways, sorry, go ahead.
No. Was I talking? I don't know.
I think so. I'm sorry.
I was listening.
We were just talking about
shooting
it.
I go to Pet Supplies Plus. I wash dogs there, like our board and trains before they go home.
Okay.
And I hear people ask questions to the cashiers, and it's like, no hate to the cashiers. Like, they try their very damnedest to answer the questions. Yeah. And I'm like, why are you asking the Pet Supplies Plus cashier like this very important question about your living creature? Like, like, do you know? I
think it's you see a lot too, though, where it's like a lot of the a lot of people are uneducated about their own nutrition.
Oh, right.
You know, you run into that issue, and then of course they're not going to know what to feed their dog.
Yeah. Honestly, we say all the time, like, Kay was so into our dog's nutrition, it got us into our nutrition. Yeah. Like, for a while, we went vegan because, like, God, our dogs are eating a biologically, appropriate diet. Should we? Mm-hmm. And we're not vegan anymore.
It's not when you're trying to build a farm.
Nothing against your vegan.
No. Nothing against vegans. It is a hard lifestyle to live.
I do love chicken and eggs.
Yeah. I think it's hardest, because we're trying to use, farm to table, grow our own garden and put it on the table to where, at a winter, it's just like, I can't do this, right?
Yeah.
But
it's easy to be vegan in summer.
I just feel like, as it's evolving as dog owners, there's just the nutrition aspect, their side of it has just still way behind. Everyone's starting to get training, and people are doing better with their dogs, but it's like this nutrition gap, and I don't think there's been a huge presence to kind of change that.
Dog food's new in the last 100 years.
Exactly.
It's not.
I get the old people every time they come in, they're like, back in my day there was 2 bags of food, and that's all there was. Now there's so much dog food. I'm like,
it's interesting.
So it's just like a mindset that people, which is cool that you guys offer that, because that's just totally alien to people.
It really is.
When I get more confident, I want to offer it as a separate thing. I will consult with you on your dog's nutrition, as a separate service. I'm not confident in that aspect. I like just freely saying it to owners and offering that.
It's not.
It's a hard conversation for some people if they don't ask for it. They get insulted.
That was going to be another topic I asked about.
It's very you have to
gotta
dance.
Ease into
it's
it.
Like a dance.
Usually I walk in, I'm like, he's a
little
filled out guy over here.
We'll start there. I'll go right for it like that. I'll be like, he's looking a little thick or something. And it's so funny to see the different response from person to person of how they respond to when I say that.
Yeah.
But then it
he loves his food. Well, that's great. We're going to use that to our advantage.
Yeah. Well, and it's always funny because you kept saying about the auto feeders. It's always the people that defend the auto feeders, and you look at their dog.
Auto feeders?
Yeah, or whatever.
The Autobots?
Autobots, whatever they are, self feeders, and you just look at their dog and you're like, so you think that's okay? Are you kidding me? It's a roly-poly.
I don't think it's working. Yeah. He doesn't know how to handle it.
No, they know when to stop.
The wiener dogs turn into the meatball dogs.
Yeah, exactly. He can't get to the food bowl, so now he has to stop.
It's rough to see. But speaking of that, we can talk about measurements because we get a lot of people who just they've got the cup in the bag. And they're like, how much do you feed your dog?
The red Solo cup in there.
We get a lot of Cedar Point.
My Cleveland Browns mug.
We get a lot of Cedar Point souvenir
cups. Yeah. That's hilarious.
Tons of them.
Yeah, it's rough.
So on the conversation of measurements here.
Yeah.
So we'll get into specific measurements in a second. But let's say new client, right? Free feeds their dog, whatever. They're getting ready to start a training program. What are the first... How would you tell them, start to finish, you would adjust that diet to be appropriate for training and to make sure that the dog is losing weight appropriately and to make sure you're doing it in a healthy manner?
Yeah. You want to take that one? So, first off, pick up the free feeder. Don't leave the bowl on the ground. If you are going to feed out of the bowl, put it down for 10 minutes. And if they don't eat it, that's their time, right? Yeah. That's how I kind of started off. But then, the thing is, if the dog, once you get the dog working for food, they're going to tell you what their limit is. You could keep and start to portion that out. But usually Kay has a pretty good idea of The math that she does when it comes to raw feeding, she needs to all your nutritional facts on the back of your food. When she goes to make a raw diet for a dog, that's where it's complicated. Is like she has to go through each of those things and say, how are we going to balance that? The dog needs to be at this percentage with this amount of weight, and what is that going to be? What protein is that going to be? What thing is that going to be? And she really calculates that out.
Now that's for the raw diet.
Yeah, that's for the raw, but she does have the ability to say okay, your dog's this weight. I need to calculate.
I'll explain it.
Yeah, if you want to give them the calculation,
I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
So you take how much your dog weighs. Okay. And then
do you need a piece of paper?
No, I think I'm good. Okay. You would take how much your dog weighs. I use an online calculator. Okay. So they ask how much your dog weighs. Is your dog a puppy or an adult dog? Adult dogs usually after 1 year old.
Yeah.
And then we need to use how active is your dog. And a lot of calculators will use a scale of 90 to 110. 90 is like an old sedentary dog, and then 110 is like a working breed dog. So I think most pet dogs, if we're going to be honest, I've looked at the calculators, 90 is appropriate. Yeah. So it does. You don't. I mean, there's really no need to do extra. If you're hiking 5 miles 3 times a week, then maybe you're 100. You know what I mean? But daily, they're not doing that much. And then you do some math with
And then the weight that you take, is that the ideal weight of the dog, or is that the current weight of the dog?
That's hard to say because a lot of people don't know the ideal weight of their dog.
Sure.
There's a way to take what they currently weigh, and then if you're trying to lose weight, that's a different calculation that I would need the calculator for. But if I'm talking about a healthy, good dog, how much should
I got you.
a healthy dog be eating per day? Because a lot of dogs will self-regulate, and they're okay, they don't eat all of their food. I'm okay, well, you're putting too much down then.
Yep.
So in order for us to train, we need to make sure that they're getting the right amount of calories per day so that they are enthusiastic about eating that food out of your hand. Because we're going to hand feed their portion for the day. So we want to make sure that portion's proper so that in that evening time, if we want to make them work for their food, they're still hungry for it.
Yeah, you don't want that motivation dying down.
Right.
That's not the only form we go for, but at the same time, you still want them to be okay, I'll still do this. And then, you do find those dogs, okay, this is your point, right? And there's that point of that you want to end a session, or you want to end off your training on a good note. And then if they have this high food drive and then I'm overfeeding them, then they're just I'm spitting out the truth. I'm oh God, and it's rough to end off on that note, because then it's I just killed a little bit of your motivation there. Right?
Yep.
And then you got to know how much calories are in your dog food, right?
That's a very interesting one also, is when you actually look at how many are in certain
per
ones.
cup.
Kcals
per cup.
Treats. Oh my goodness. We looked up one time, a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a client about why they should stop feeding those fucking dental chews or whatever, and they were feeding one of those raw dental, or one of those large dental chews per day to their dog. I think it was 300 or 400 calories in it. It was
That's
insane.
a cup of food.
I know.
Yeah.
I love when they have that. Oh, they get one of these.
Yeah, just one.
And for the board and train, they give you all of them, count it out. And
one of these per day.
Okay. After
one bully
training.
stick with meal.
After training. But yeah, so you find out how many your dog particularly needs, and then you calculate how many calories per cup are in your dog food, and then put those together. We said, the website that I use the calculator for is called Raw Fed and Nerdy.
And nerdy. I like it.
Raw Fed and Nerdy. They have an amazing Facebook group too if you're interested in feeding raw. Those ladies will help you out. And then there's actually nutritionists on that page that will make you a recipe. I've bought one. They're very, very easy to follow, and they're affordable. The recipe itself, them doing it, and then you putting it together is affordable.
Yeah.
But it takes time.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we were saying, we get a lot of people are he just gets half of this solo cup twice a day, and I'm we're gonna figure out, and they just don't know. They're oh, that sounds great, and I'm we have to figure out how much they need and how much is in their food. So
the standard of what a dog should look like anymore too, I feel throws people off so much as well, because most dogs you see are somewhat overweight. You know? And it's interesting, like, how much some people will feed sometimes their dog and how little they wind up needing. I feel like that also is one of the hardest conversation to have with the owner as well, is past just the, like, okay, cool, your dog is, like, pretty overweight right now and needs to lose weight, is when you get these dogs that go from eating, like, 5 cups a day total to, like, 2 cups a day. And you tell them, you're like, listen, like, your dog literally is only eating 2 cups of food a day,
fine.
and they're fine, and they're happy, and they're engaged, and they feel good.
Healthy,
but in their mind, it's like 2 cups. You know, it's just it's insane. You know,
Got less to pick up later.
It's just where
Yeah,
there's like
yeah.
a lot of emotion behind that too. The nutrition, as much as the training, there's so much emotion when it, these raw people like the groups. Kate, she's added me to a few of them, and I read some of the stuff. They are cutthroat.
Yeah, I believe it.
I thought the training groups were bad.
Dude, that's any of these industries.
Yeah.
But
It's insane.
Facebook's
It's cool.
a scary
Pretty gnarly.
cutthroat place.
Yeah.
No, you were right. What you were saying though, like you'll see these dogs that just poop out so much. Like there's nothing. Like this is just going right through the dog because it doesn't need it. Like,
And then the
it's
nutrition,
insane.
like they're not retaining anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And let's talk, like if they're massive, like let's switch foods.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
get something a little bit higher quality. If you're going to invest in training, all this money in training, like let's invest in the animal
right?
as well.
And then the worst is like none of the people go out in the backyard and check on their dog's stool, let alone pick it up.
Oh, yeah.
I look at
You
every
know, like,
single-
and it's like
I do. I'm like,
she's been insane. Like
lately-
while Drax has been recovering.
I'm like, did you see it? What did it look like?
Is it good? Is it good?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I did with Vinny. I used to have a lot of issues with him with like digestion. He always had loose stools and like just never seemed like he was feeling super good and stuff. And I switched his food like probably like 4 or 5 times, just trying different things. And I tried all the high quality dog foods on the market. I was feeding like Origin, like all that stuff, $100 a bag.
Yeah.
Right? And he still did horrible on it. And I wound up switching him to Purina Pro Plan Sport Formula. And because it's so much higher calories per cup than like virtually any other dog food on the market, I was able to feed him like half what I was feeding him before and him still get all of the same amount of calories. And immediately he got better from it. And I think it was just he couldn't, like, for
too
as
much.
much food as coming in, he wasn't able to digest it as quickly.
Yeah.
You know?
His intestines were inflamed, probably.
Yeah. So interesting. Cool. Yeah, I've always told people, like, when it comes to the feeding side of things and like working for the food, like I said, it makes the process so much funner. It's so much more engaging for the dog. And I've always kind of erred on the side of whatever you're currently feeding your dog right now is probably way too much. So take some sort of dramatic switch. Start with the 2 meals a day and like taking it away after, making sure the food doesn't roll over at that point. Within a week, make your adjustment from there. Is it too much, too little? Go up or down from there. And again, I'm not getting as scientific as you are with it, but I think one of you guys had said, like, the dog is going to let you know, like, what is right and what is not right, And cool, if you get 3 days in and they're like, oh my God, like, I'm eating every single ounce of it and I need more, like, up it a little bit,
It's like, the dog knows their body better than we do.
Yeah.
And we've been learning that lesson a lot, as Drax has been recovering and stuff.
Yeah, how's he doing?
He's doing a lot better. It's been hell of a ride.
Sure.
Yeah,
again,
he's not 100% at all whatsoever, but he's much
is he still
better than he
doing the
was.
like yelping and stuff, like, or
it's more. This is funny.
Yeah.
Because
it's exhausting.
Again, I always say, like, you kind of have it too, where it's like, even with your dog, sometimes it's just like you don't have to do that intensive training with them because they're just going to be good dogs. And Drax has never been that problematic or anything, but at the same time, he also like disliked, handling at times, right? And actually Kay with doing grooming and stuff, she's done an incredible job curbing it.
Yeah.
While she's in, it's just something I've been busy with dogs, like to where she really handled that and took up that mantle.
Yeah.
Well, after, he started yelping and we didn't know what it was. So, we took him to the med vet and everything. And, he stayed overnight, but then he kind of lost because he had to get an IV. He had to get fentanyl IV. He had to get constant shots and stuff.
Yeah, they had to sedate him a lot.
To where it put him in, it kind of backed him up.
Yeah.
Because now he has like this fentanyl sticker on him. Okay.
We can't get it off.
And we go to take it off and he's doing the yelping.
fentanyl sticker?
It's a
It's like
fentanyl
a patch.
patch.
Oh,
So
yeah, okay. Yeah,
it slowly releases
Yeah.
through the skin.
I understand.
But so now he's giving off these reactions for that kind of stuff for
Yeah.
handling. So now we kind of have we had to do some handling and revert back to like working him through that and stuff. And it, it sucks for him because he's like 8 years old. And the biggest thing is the reason he's just never, I don't think the dude has experienced pain.
Right.
He's been a very healthy dog, never like had any sort of injuries up to this point, to where I think, it was a bit traumatic for him going through all that. And, his recovery is doing good, but sometimes we're like, is he being a big baby? Because first off,
perceived pain?
The vets were telling us like, oh, you might have to consider putting him down. And then like,
I remember you telling me that.
And we're like,
but then you said like the MRI or whatever came back like fine, right?
The spinal tap came back
All of
like
his
nothing.
tests.
The joint tap came back nothing. The MRI, blood tests.
What was going on with him, just for context?
He was screaming in pain.
not
anytime
moving.
he would move, and then he wouldn't.
Like even when he would just move like himself, you're talking.
Yeah. So when he started not getting up to go to the bathroom, we were like, all right. We had to force him to get up into the car, and then they don't let you go in with them. So like the whole way in, he's screaming, and they're like, okay, something's wrong. So
and like everything we were reading, like. They're like, oh, it's probably a muscle.
It's a bulged
pulled muscle or bulged disc. And, we knew that, and they said it takes weeks to, like, recover. As you were
I told you with Oscar, like, it was forever.
Yeah. And, it's definitely that where it's like we're on week 3, right?
Yep.
And he's getting better. Like, there are those little bit of like, you could see like him twitch a little bit, like it was uncomfortable. My biggest thing is to where I don't think it's his neck, is I see his hacks go up when he was trying to go to the bathroom. Anytime, like when he started, and I was like, and he was having that issue of going number 2. And I was like, maybe it is the lower back. I don't know what it was, but, I thought that was interesting, is anytime he was trying to do stuff, I saw like his entire mohawk, and I was
that's what really triggered my first aid class, because they do a lot of like how to do examinations. And they weren't able to examine him fully when he was in the vet's office, like a full like touch. So I've done a couple of those, and like his hacks will go up, but there's not. I'm doing the pressure points where they say to check. Like nothing's dramatic, so it's like we don't know what's wrong. It's exhausting.
And then I just they did it. They did a good job with him.
They've given us all the tools. I mean, the neurology team over there is
that's great.
Passionate. Like they've called me every day on the dime, asked all the right questions, made sure that I understood like medications, what was going on. I understood like what the tests, because I'm asking like real questions, and they're really great. So kudos, and they've helped. I mean, it's totally helped.
What vet is this?
MedVet Emergency.
The one in Brook Park?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So you guys are coming out this way for it.
It sucks that I don't think there's much option out there in Sandusky for anything like that.
That's great to know that MedVet. I haven't been there yet, but like we've essentially nixed West Park from like ever using them again, because they're just the worst. Are you familiar with West Park?
We've never had to go.
Yeah. So they're like probably one of the bigger emergency vet clinics in the area. They're around the corner from here. But they're, like you were saying, like you're asking like real questions and stuff, and they're engaging. And we've always used them in the past.
Yeah, I remember driving a dog there. Yeah.
So, like it's crazy. Like the last couple times we went there, like we would, call and want to speak with whoever it was that was caring for whatever dog it was. And we would ask them, same deal, like legitimate, like real questions, because we have a degree of knowledge about this kind of stuff. And they would either refuse to answer them completely and say like, oh, well, like, and we've been taking dogs there forever, right? Oh, like we're just not going to talk to you guys about this. We're only going to talk to the owners about this of the dog, even though we have consent forms that we've showed them in the past, and they said we're good and stuff. Or they would just be so snobby and like how could you even ask that question kind of mentality? Where it's like, well, because we actually know these things, and we want to know what the deal is with some of this kind of stuff. So we've been so frustrated with them. We've stopped using them, but that's good to know, because MedVet is fairly close.
I mean,
to us
anytime Kay called, even if it wasn't like the main doctor or something, like the
They
person
sent
that
me
answered the
pictures.
phone knew.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
They're like, oh, Drax, like we feel so bad for him. I mean, he was
'cause
probably
he was-
really loud though. They were like, oh, that dog,
The one that's yelping.
that one that's screaming in the back. Yeah.
And it's like, you know, for us, we know better. Like when you have a pulled back or bad back, you're just like, all right, I gotta sit it out today. And like dogs don't know that. They're just like, okay, I'm an animal. I gotta move. I gotta do these things. To where he kept putting himself like in a lot of pain, you know. And but he's doing better.
Crazy.
He's hopping on couches, laying down, moving around.
Getting excited for food again.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
when I
That's
could
awesome.
have seen
When
him
you talked
get
about that
excited.
earlier, I thought about that this morning.
Yeah. He's like
on the
getting
couch,
excited. Like, okay,
Yeah.
she's opening the things.
Yeah.
That's always been my read, is because like my dogs are all like food psychopaths. So if one of them ever stopped being
Yep.
excited for their food, like that's how I would know
100%.
something is like
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah, he refused
you
food
know?
a couple times, and I can just remember like, this is it.
You're like,
Like,
what
we're
the
not gonna make it back from
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
He's good.
yep,
Yeah.
he's
Awesome.
doing well.
If
That's
Vera,
good. OG.
If Vera never wanted food,
dude,
that'd be the
any of
day.
them. Or Vinny.
Yeah, both of
Man,
them.
you know what Vinny's is for me is if he stops spinning. I know that something's wrong. There's been a
Once
couple of
the
times.
merry-go-round stops.
There's been a couple of times where he whatever, like tweaked a leg or whatever, something like that, and like he would stop for like an entire 2 days, like spinning at all. Like he would be like a calm, normal dog. And I remember in my mind, I'm like,
This isn't right.
there's some, like you're not pacing around my living room right now. Like what's happening?
Poor guy. Oh, Vinny.
All right, changing topics here, going back towards more training related things. Tom,
Hey.
did you say something?
No, I said great.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
I love it.
Did you see the post Larry Crone made yesterday?
There was a lot of context that I felt like I was from the whole situation. I've been
You
piecing.
talking the solid canine training thing?
Oh yeah, I
see
saw that. Whoa,
Call
he
out.
was. That's insane to me. And like the thing is, a lot of these online trainers, like it's literally throwing jabs at other methodologies that they don't like.
Yeah.
Can we get context on that, though?
So basically,
Thank you.
Larry Crone is a trainer out in Kentucky, I believe.
Yes.
Right. So he is whatever he does board and trains out of his house, and he's a phenomenal trainer. He's very talented, and he's hardcore pushing the movement right now of like, let's try to do things nicer and better.
And
right?
like his e-collar I have always respected him for that. He's
honestly love it. I think that he is fighting the good fight of that. I think he gets a little hypocritical over things sometimes and gets a little overboard with it.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever, he's had a thing against Sean O'Shea and Jeff Gelman for a long time, which listen, I don't completely disagree with him. Like I have my opinions about them as well. I think that
I do too.
they obviously get extremely heavy-handed for no reason sometimes. I think that, they're pushing too much this like seminar ideology of like we stop things in 3 seconds, right? All your behavioral issues, we're stopping them, and it's going to be done within this one weekend seminar kind of thing, right? Which is just not the reality of the situation, because you and I know that dog training is deeper than that. It's the relationship, it's the communication, it's understanding teaching right from wrong, and then yes, there is the side of the equation of like, we have to correct this, we have to get on this, and we have to stop it. But if you always jump right in, if that's the solution right there, you're missing so much more of it, obviously.
Exactly.
Right.
And it said I just see a lot of early dog trainers are not so much making the mistake, but these are the people that
they're looking up.
Their marketing is killer and all that kind of stuff, and they make these promises, and then it's like it's very dangerous when you give someone that's you're good. It's dangerous when you give someone newer and say like, I'm going to teach you how to solve aggression in 5 days.
Well, the other side of it too,
Yeah.
and this has always been my biggest thing with them, and their like T3 seminar that they were doing for a while, is we're going to teach you how to build a 6-figure dog training business in 2 weeks, right? So the start of it is how do we make a bunch of money, and then it turns into how do we correct firmly and stop behavioral issues. Then it goes to how do we actually train the dog, right? As opposed to it should go in the opposite order,
Exactly.
right?
And like
a lot into it.
that's where like
It is a lot to it.
and like that video again. To try to describe what happened.
Oh, yeah. So the context of the video is basically it was one of Jeff's employees outside in the car doing the old loop the leash through the side and pull him in kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Which, listen, here's the thing. When I watched it, I was a little frustrated initially with Larry because it's like, I think every dog trainer on the planet has done that at some point.
Experience that moment,
Of like, I need to get this dog in this crate, or I need to get this dog in this car, or whatever it may be. And like, we got to just kind of get him in kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, as you get more experience, you learn there's probably smoother and easier ways to do it. Or is it a matter of, did we need to fight that fight right there? Could we have just picked the dog up and put the dog in the car and then went on our way and then tackled a whole session of getting the dog used to getting in and out of the car at another time?
Yeah.
Right? But what pissed me off about it a little bit was that like kind of like call out mentality of it. We're just using this as an opportunity to be like, fuck this guy.
Yeah. I feel a lot of trainers are, like that are trying to become relevant on the internet. It really is like, look at what they're doing wrong while they're not showing what they're doing right. Yeah. So to say. And it's kind of unfair, right? And my thing is like, I don't know the context of that situation.
It's a good point.
If that girl picked up the dog, it could have bit her in the face. She didn't know that, right? Well. That dog could have had fear of cars to where sometimes pressure is the best route, right? Pressure creates diamonds, right? Where she was trying to do, so you can't really, that's where I don't catch on to those videos because I can't know the context. There's sometimes those moments where you're like, wow, that situation looked like shit for me. Sure. Like just for yourself.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And, I get it where it's just like we can have these higher fameism trainer battles, right? It's entertaining, but that's where I really have been getting sick of social media, even the dog training community, where it's like you can't post something on a dog training group without like hundreds, like at least 2 people saying you're wrong because they can do it right. Yeah. And that's really unfair to a lot of people.
I think a lot of people are trying to have the this like kind of buddy trainer relationship where through social media and through these dog trainer groups and stuff, it's like we're all friends and we're community and this and that. But what actually needs to happen is we need to be like having conversations like this, right?
Exactly.
Like, okay, cool. Like I'm sure there's numerous things that we disagree on training wise, right? Yeah. But like we're able to sit there and kind of talk about those things and not have it be this like finger pointing kind of thing because like we talked about from the beginning, like there are billions of dog owners out there, dogs out there, whatever it is. I don't know the statistics. You guys probably do more than me. But
billions.
There's gazillions of dogs and dog owners out there, right? And all of those people are living a very different life with their dogs. And, every single trainer out there is catering to a certain type of life that those people are living with their dogs. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And just because we disagree on something doesn't mean that there's something wrong, right? Like you guys live a different life with your dogs than I do, right? Yeah. So you're going to train different type of people's dogs than I do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's nothing wrong with that. No. And here's the thing. I think as much as I could say Sean and Jeff and those guys suck and they're putting too much pressure on dogs and this and that, right? They're also catering to a specific type of dog owner as well, just like Larry is.
Yeah, exactly. So, and those guys, like, I know Jeff has been around longer than Larry and those kind of things, and that's respectable. But at the same time, like I would still expect as what I know you do a phenomenal job. Even when I was trying to become an employee, you really walked me through the whole system for. I think we did it for like 2-3 weeks first, something like that. But like there is never. You shouldn't put your employees in that situation where
stuff like
it's
that's going to happen.
Oh, this dog's going to have a huge issue getting in the car. But at the same time, the mentality and philosophy that they push on people, like they lose a lot of that compassion for the dog of like, oh, this dog doesn't know my car. This dog's probably been in a regular car, not an SUV, and they don't know how to jump up and stuff. So be more worried about the dog doing it than you doing it. Yeah. I say when people are using pressure a lot right now, it's more so like they're doing it for the dog and the dog's just going along to avoid. And that's, that has its purpose in training. But like, don't drag the dog. I want the dog to hop in the car itself. Yep. I don't want to literally pull it through, and that's where like today we're picking up Tito. He has some issues with people a little bit. Nothing too severe, but at the same time, I'm like, okay, owner, you're going to put the dog in the car for me and keep the leash on. Right?
Is this a new board and train?
Yeah, we're picking on him.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm excited. Tito. He has just when people come through the door, head blows off kind of thing, So it's actually like they have a double floor, and like once you go to open the door downstairs, it's on for him.
Sounds fun.
But they rescued him.
What kind of dog is Tito?
I don't know.
He's a rescue.
A shepherd. Yeah, we don't know. He's a.
We had him over.
Yeah, and that was another dog where like we're able to build a relationship before bringing him into the house. Where the one-on-ones before worked really nice for him because we got to hang out with him and like have the own, build that confidence that he can trust us a little bit before coming in.
He went with a walk with each of us individually when he was at the house and saw the house, smelled the things.
Yeah.
And then we went to his house. And like, now we're here. It's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
Cool. Sounds fun.
Yeah.
No, totally. And I think, so going back to, like you were saying, you want the dog to be able to jump in a scenario like that, right? I think another thing is, and we talked about this on, I think it was the last podcast where we broke down kind of the learning theory side of things. I think if people have a little bit more of an understanding of some of that kind of stuff, they can make situations like that go so much smoother.
Yeah.
Right?
And I don't, all the material I've ever learned from them, like, I did learn some basic things. And there's a lot of trainers our age, they have to I still have to accept, like, who taught me early on about prong collars and how to use them. It was honestly just videos. I'm going to admit it.
Yeah.
Right.
Hell yeah.
Like, things have changed about, like, how I feel about him. Don't get me wrong. But I definitely have to credit him for that. Right?
Absolutely. I completely agree. Sean was one of the first people that I ever did a phone consult with when I went to start my business, I remember.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And, like, it's more so that, like, I don't see anything about learning theory in their stuff.
Nothing.
Nothing.
There's not about it. Right?
And it's, that learning theory video is huge. And I know our old boss would be proud that you can regurgitate it so well, right?
For as much as, we could look at, some of the situations we were in and the guy we used to work for and stuff like that. I always accredit, how much, that situation was so essential for my dog training career.
Oh, it's insane.
Because we got in with the right network. You know what I mean? Like, with people that really understood and really were doing fantastic work. Maybe not necessarily him, right?
Yeah,
But he knew what he was talking about, right? And he knew the people that really knew what they were talking about, which got me onto, Michael Ellis and, the whole Learberg crew and the sport dog world and stuff like that, and really understanding teaching high-end precise behaviors.
I think it was a trainer he had up there once that I was like, this trainer met both Chad Mackin and Tyler Muto, and I was like, who do I go see? Or actually, I was like, do I go see Jeff and Sean?
Yeah.
That's actually was the conversation. He's like, no, you go see Chad and Tyler.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, cool. And I learned a lot from, again, there was a really good network there to where I've learned a lot from a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And it was definitely in the right direction, right? You know, to where you need to learn those things early on. You need to understand the psychology. And I eat that shit up. I know you do too. Like, the psychology is...
Tyler was the person who taught me how to use e-collars. You know? Like, I remember when his leash reactivity program on Learberg, like the online course came out,
The fire drill.
Which, listen, it's dated. We're not really doing it anymore and stuff. But I remember watching it and being like, this dude knows what he's talking about, And I remember calling up Canine Connection literally like a couple days later and just being like, I want to talk to Tyler.
That's awesome.
I was like, I want to come up and learn e-collars.
I went up and I went and worked with him and Blake. They had a pretty awesome seminar. That was fun.
Canine behavior understanding.
Yeah, I went to the first one. It was fun. I had a lot of fun. It was really good to get to know them. But the education they had there, on the e-collar and stuff was huge. Yeah. And I would say a lot of these younger trainers, if they're trying to find something to learn from as far as like e-collar training start to finish, Tyler's course on Consider the Dog you're in it.
Really?
Yeah, I think were you at one of his seminars?
No.
Okay, then it's just
Someone
another dog,
just
bearded
like
dog trainer with a hat. I swear.
I've never been to one of his seminars before. I used to do, like I said, I would.
You went up there.
So originally, the first time I ever went up there, I paid for just 3 hours of his time, and essentially just like he worked with me, we worked with dogs together and stuff like that. And then it started turning into, I wanted to come up, and I think the second time he's like, I'll just charge you for an hour, and then like the third and fourth time he's like, dude, just come hang out.
Just come up.
That's awesome.
So I would drive up like early in the morning, and I would hang out there until like 8 o'clock, and then drive home.
That's awesome.
It was super cool, man.
Yeah, I know he's getting into like the stock world and all that, kind of stepping back a little bit. Good for him,
The last time I saw him, he was like really gung ho on like, I'm trying to figure out kind of like not his exit plan for things, but he was like really trying to get into how do I set myself up to like retire and spend time with my family and my kids. Like position myself to do that. And he was really shifting his focus with the business where he did not want to do behavioral modification much anymore. He still does a little bit of it and stuff, but
he had a great podcast on Canine Paradigm about it.
Is it a recent one?
Transitioning.
It was last year. It wasn't. It was a few months ago.
Really?
But
it's been a couple
the big
years
thing
since
is he talks about mental health in that one.
It's huge.
And I would honestly say that podcast has affected me in the past few months a lot.
Yeah.
From just like, how we're interacting with, like we're talking about, have you ever heard of Wim Hof breathing?
No.
The Iceman?
Wim Hof breathing?
Yeah. The Iceman. Essentially this guy.
The Iceman Chocolate L?
No, not that one.
This dude climbed Everest in a pair of shorts and no oxygen.
Oh my goodness.
Because the method that he takes from like ancient ways of breathing and has like packaged it and sold it, but that's what he did for himself on how to breathe and stuff. They were talking about that and that kind of stuff.
Didn't they inject him with like...
They injected this dude with E. coli, then he did this breathing exercise and his body
his blood.
They did like 10 people, like they did a 10 people test.
What's this guy's name?
Wim Hof. WHIMFOHOF.
Yeah.
He was on Joe Rogan's podcast too.
Yeah, I figured that sounds like somebody that would be on Joe Rogan's podcast.
And
Special human.
I would say that was cool, but then they were talking in that podcast about like James Nestor, just about breathing and stuff. And I'm into meditation and Zen stuff, and like that stuff really gets me. And I think it's so important for I just wanted to throw this one out here for when you told me we were gonna do the podcast. I'm like, I got to talk about a little bit about this, because like the breathing stuff helps, the meditative stuff helps when it comes to dog training. Like it's nothing. Like when I catch, you'll even catch yourself at
from
times,
just keeping yourself kind of centered and composed.
Or like when I'm trying to pressure a dog into a sit, and this is the first time they're learning pressure, right? And then I'm like, I'm holding my breath, right? And then being able to just breathe naturally and do that kind of stuff. And we're in this real longevity of it. Like I'm going to be training in my 50s, and this is what we're going to do, right? So then I was getting really into like yoga and stuff, and like all that stuff. I really think younger dog trainers should just begin to incorporate, because that flexibility you need with dogs, that ability to keep yourself grounded mentally and everything. It was a really cool podcast. It just inspired me to get into all that stuff recently.
It's helped me a lot with like vocal dogs, as I'm an anxious person in general. Like I was not put on this earth to be a dog trainer. You know what I mean? Like I've really had to work on that part of myself to do well with dogs. Yeah. And so you get a vocal dog or a dog that's blowing up at another dog, like I get just as reactive. Yeah. Like I can cry on spot and easily. But the breathing and like having that to come back to when you're in those moments of like they're freaking out, like I can't.
Everybody's freaking out.
Yeah. So that's a special dog trainer thing, but the breathing's definitely helped me a lot.
Man, isn't it? I've never looked into it really deeply from that standpoint. Like as far as like how could I actively work on improving myself like that? But I do say all the time that this job has created so much like self-control and ability to focus through chaos and stuff. And I used to equate it to, that like I generally compose myself well throughout chaotic things happening.
You do. You really do.
But I wasn't always like that, and that's something that I think I developed over time, like unintentionally just through doing this, right? To the point where, a dog fight breaks out and, you break it up and then it's like, you're good right after, to the point where like everybody's like, oh, your adrenaline's still spiked and everything. Same deal. Like, your kennel room is blowing up for whatever reason. And somebody just walked in the door and it's like, oh my God, I gotta, handle all these types of situations and stuff.
And the cool thing is I've been like reading books on it, studying it. And what do they talk about? Your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, your fight or flight, or your rest and digest. In everybody's bodies with high anxiety, you're in fight or flight.
Yeah.
Right.
Wait, so you're saying that people are genetically wired one way or the other? Is that what you're saying?
No, your nervous system is going to tap into one or the other.
Okay.
Now, it's either you're operating in a rest and digest mindset or a fight or flight. And they talk about like our anxieties and all these things. It's people that are constantly in fight or flight. That's what anxiety is, right? And it's learning to shut that down because that has utility. Like when we were cavemen, like you needed that to survive, right? Yeah. But now, people aren't using it to survive. They're just using it to cope, and it's not good for your body, right? And then The interesting thing is you have all these owners that are in fight or flight. Like, what are their dogs going to do on a daily basis? Their body's going to run on that nervous system like them, you know?
We talk about that with a lot of people.
And then it's really cool because then I was reading this like one Zen book that's talking about, I don't know all of them, but they call Wu Wei, which is walking meditation.
Sure.
Wu Sa, which is sitting meditation, right? And like the other one's like moving meditation, like yoga. And I'm like, so you got walking for the dog, right? You have to have that level-minded.
Yeah.
And then the sitting meditation, it's can the dog sit still in a bed and have that stability? And it's like people aren't doing that for themselves. So we got to, you know, how do we expect that from the dog?
Yeah.
Right. And then I've just been really into that idea. Even with like my reactive clients, I make them do a little bit of like breathing and stretching out their muscles because then they're a lot looser. Right. Yeah. So
we do this thing where like we'll be on a walk with the reactive dog and we're like, okay, tense, and let go.
Right.
Tense.
Yeah.
Let go. Now that's what you should feel like. You got to acknowledge those feelings in you because that's going right down the leash.
Yeah. That's so interesting. This is great conversation, guys. So you know what's interesting is one thing that you're right. I think a lot of it, like reactivity, for example, that's one of the prime ones that I feel like people just lose their cool in, right? Yeah. Like they tense, they immediately, I see a lot of owners, they jump into flight mode at that point. We got to get out of here, right? Like, I can't handle this situation right now, right? Where just like with some dogs, where when we try to expose them to new situations, they need to learn to just exist in that environment. I think a part of reactive dogs before we're even worried about like training them or working through those problems is learning how to exist in those types of situations as well. And one common thing that I've seen that I've really dove into in the last maybe year or so is really getting the point across to owners of like how to work through some of the initial embarrassment of having a dog like that. Because I think a lot of that fight or flight mindset that they're in is not necessarily the mindset that like, oh my God, my dog is aggressive and going to kill all these other dogs or anything. It's just fucking embarrassing.
Everybody's looking.
Yeah, like they already, everybody's already dealing with social anxiety. We go to the park
and my dog's barking at every dog we walk by or barking at every person that walks by and this and that. And sometimes I just have clients stop and it's like, I was working with this German Shepherd a couple weeks ago. It's the same deal. Just typical German Shepherd that barks at everything, right? And I'm just like, just hold the leash, let this dog walk by. And I was like, don't worry about what your dog's doing. We're not even going to give a command. We're not going to ask the dog to do anything. And the dog's barking and stuff, and they're holding the leash. So I was just, all right, just stand there. And I was like, now, look at that other dog. Look at that dog right there.
Yeah, I heard this yesterday. I like, your podcast from last week.
Look at this dog right there. I was like, that dog's fucking barking too. I was like, you're all worried about yours and embarrassed about he's intimidating this other dog or whatever it is, but that same dog is barking back at your dog.
Yeah. And you're having a dialogue with yourself in that moment. What are they thinking?
And you're not aware of that, as opposed to just looking around. And the other thing is that, okay, cool, look around. Not a single person in this park is looking at you right now while your dog is doing that. And nobody cares.
Even without their dogs, they're like anxiety. They think there's some. No, you have a little bit of that. Sometimes that anxiety of just like people judging you, and it's like you add the dog that's acting like an idiot out in public. Like again, nobody's looking at you. We're all in our own worlds, and you have to just be. On this ride with the dog, right? Be, and mainly be an observer.
Right? Training in public's been huge.
I think that's what you do really well when you're.
That's hard to do initially.
Yeah,
I think for a new trainer and stuff, training in public, you think like, oh my God, I'm a dog trainer and all eyes are on me, and if I screw something up right now, everybody's watching. Where nobody knows you're a fucking dog trainer.
Nobody knows,
right?
Nobody knows you're.
Somebody just thinks you're some weirdo in the middle of the park.
Purposely don't wear Lake Erie Dog stuff. I'm like, now they really don't know.
Yeah. Again, I'm fine with that. We're trying to do the right thing and help the dog
that's what I have to
better.
Remind myself. It's like each
the big
situation is getting them further.
Totally.
So just endure it, and it's not about you. It's about the dog.
Mm-hmm. But again, like really teaching owners to separate themselves, right? I think you do a great job at that of like where you're working the dog, and you're like, okay, like I'm not like we are a team, but at the same time, like. I can't mentally invest myself and more so emotionally invest myself in this situation, right? Sometimes we have to just be like, all right, this dog has this problem. We know it. We're going to hear it. We're going to deal with it.
We have to endure this to get better.
And then, you could get into then the conversation I have with people sometimes as far as like realistic expectations. Like I try to look at like, where did I get some of these skills and stuff that I have? And 90% of it is owning Vinny. You obviously met Vinny. He's a hyperactive, neurotic Malinois, right? And he has got his mental issues. He likes to spin in his crate. He likes to pace around rooms and stuff like that. And you know what it was is initially honestly, initially I had this false mindset because of some of the Jeffs and the Shawns that were like, if you have a dog like that, you're not correcting it firmly enough, because if you do, it will go away, as opposed to understanding this is the dog that I have. And guess what? He's 100% responsive to my commands. He listens. He's social. He's fine, but he's got these fucking quirks. And I can manage those quirks here and there, but they won't go away because that's a part of who he is.
Genetic behaviors, like the cycle of them, where we had a like mini Bernedoodle that was in, like, I'm not saying Will Britt, like, but at the same time, Sasha's a Bernese Mountain Dog, and I kept seeing anytime I would go up to Hobbs to like put on his collars and stuff, I was like, oh, he's flipping over and submitting. But then I like walked up to Sasha one day, and anytime you walk up to Sasha and she's on the couch, she flips over and is like, give it to me, right? So I literally was like, these are the same behaviors. This isn't so much
he's
submitting.
a confident dog, so it wasn't.
Yeah, he's just like, when you went to put an e-collar on him, he's like, this is the best. You're loving me so much. And I'm like, no, dude, I'm just putting on a collar. So we had to work on that. But it was like funny because I was like, oh, that's Bernese behavior, right? I've seen other Malinois that run in circles, you know, like...
It's a especially when you're exposed to a lot of different Malinois, you realize that that's kind of a part of who they are, And it's interesting. Once I accepted it, I don't know if I just became more okay with it, or because I accepted it, my energy kind of wore off a little bit on it, but like it did get better. As I stopped hyper fixating on it, he became calmer. He learned how to exist in the house better. And I think part of that is because I understood who he was. I stopped trying to force him into this pocket that was not him.
That's
energy,
and that helps me remind. We got a OG Dutch right now with us.
How old is he now?
I think he's around. Him and Drax are the same age. They're like around 8.
Dude, right? Did you ever meet Max's brother?
Max. I
don't think you met him.
Yeah.
Okay, so Max was another Malinois that was bred by the same person.
Dude would run through the ring and just start snipping at everybody and biting them.
Max was a bad motherfucker. He was one of the coolest Malinois that I ever met in my life.
I met his other brother, Jax. He actually had to get rehomed.
Really?
Yeah. It just was. That dude was scary. I was just like, it wasn't the right like living situation for him. But I brought him down to Tennessee. That breeder.
He was in Tennessee?
No, I found somebody for the dog.
We sent Max to Tennessee.
Oh, really?
I literally kind of people.
So Max, literally he was Rob's dog, right? Mm-hmm. Like whoever had him surrendered him to Rob. He lived at the shop for like 2 years, and Jake and I just like did stuff with him all the time.
Really?
It was just a fun dog, And the cool thing was he was so social with other dogs. Yeah,
nice.
Like very cool. Like we could have him out in daycare and stuff, and it was like no biggie,
Dutch is an irritable old man.
Yeah. We wound up finding a handler down in Nashville. I drove him down to Nashville for him.
Yeah. I think the biggest issue was that was a backyard breeder selling Malinois to pet dogs or people that thought that they knew what they were doing, and
And he was breeding, like I said, they're badass Malinois.
They were intense.
Dutch had a personality to him. Max had a personality to him,
Yeah. And like that's where Dutch has his vacations with us once a year, where he comes for like a few.
Yeah.
His owners drive the Lamborghini for twice.
She loves it, like because like we did like all those kind of like I did those kind of things with him when he was early on, and now he's like really.
I've never been around a dog like that.
He was like my practice dog that like Rob said like okay, learn this stuff with him, and I had a blast with it.
Hell yeah!
But his owner actually opened up a new restaurant locally.
Really?
Yeah.
Treehouse Provisions.
Yeah.
That's who you've been reposting.
Yeah, Cam's Corner. Go try.
I'll have to go check it out. It looks good.
It's great. Carry out. It's real. It's a ghost kitchen.
Good shit.
But yeah, that's why we took Dutch, is because he's a family Malinois. And he does.
And it's crazy because not many Malinois are that.
No.
No, he has his quirks and has his moments, but they know the dog. They accept the dog and they get it.
And we're there like when things are busy, like because it's a lot to manage. We're there to take him.
Yeah.
I love him.
Okay, so last big topic I want to dive into here, because I feel like this is kind of evolving into it, is so you had talked a little bit about, you do a lot of work in meditation and kind of centering yourself and things like that, and just working through general anxieties and stuff. You guys own a business that is nonstop 100%, and it's just you guys, right? So one, what what role does all of that stuff play into keeping you guys centered throughout all of that and throughout all of the chaos and that? And then after that, I want to dive into tips and things that you like. We talked about all of the things that could potentially go wrong in coaching new trainers. What sorts of advice would you give to new trainers that are looking to start their own business to make sure they, one, know what to expect going into it, because it is way more work than I think people think it is, right?
Yeah.
And two, to make sure you're doing it properly, you know, and not. My biggest concern with new trainers is people falling into the trap of accidentally scamming clients, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Taking money before they're ready to take money for things and promising things that they're not in a position to promise, you know? So I know those are two separate questions.
I want to, if I need you to repeat that one, I might ask for it again.
That's fine.
But I think the big thing is kind of talking about the dynamic that we have to do first, right?
Yep.
Because we're a couple. We got to balance work. We got to balance living in a area with a bunch of dogs, right? We got to balance doing business and coordinating all of those things. But then we have to balance out our self-care, but then mainly our relationship, right? So there's a lot there where sometimes we do have rough days of trying to do that together.
All of it.
But I think it's a really cool relationship that we have. Maybe a little codependent, but it works, right?
Yeah.
We found a way to really build on it and make a good life out of it.
Yeah, and it took work too. That didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
At all. It didn't start that way.
We've definitely,
I'm thankful for the kennel we worked at because we learned a lot early on, and it wasn't our business to make mistakes in. Right?
And I've been playing Sega, right? So what I want to talk about is you play those games. They're not save point, go ahead. Those games from level 1, you're learning from your mistakes. You're okay, my brain needs to register this. I keep making the mistake, right? But the idea is it's been really cool to learn through those mistakes and develop. Right. Yeah. And develop a good workflow for us where I'm the 8 a.m. guy. I wait, she wants to sleep in and that's fine. I wake up at 5:30 and I'm go.
I am not a morning person either.
I am
I just need to go slow and Tom's let's go. 5 mile walk. Here we go.
I'm that in the evening time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm in the evening.
So we balance that out pretty good. And then again, I've been doing this for 10 years. We keep it limited with the dogs so that we're not overwhelmed ourselves, right? To where, again, Kay has to handle all that marketing and handling all that business stuff where I have to use my time while she's doing that to kind of worry about the dog stuff, take them through training and, do all those kind of things. But I guess the biggest thing is making it a lifestyle, making it a vocation and fun thing for us to where that's really helped is okay, we have a dog that needs public work. Do you want to go out and grab a drink and sit down at a patio and put them in a downstay and hang out there, right?
Yeah.
So those aspects have been really cool in that.
Having hobbies outside of dogs too has been really important because our life revolves around dogs.
Yeah.
So we've found a lot of hobbies at home that we can do that takes us out of that.
Yep.
Right. Just raise chickens, move them into a coop, she's really in the farm setting. She bakes sourdough bread and does all these kind of things that are just good for her. But at the same time, it is 24/7. So we're doing it around the dogs, right? And that's where I kind of do my yoga, my meditation. I look at those as kind of my hobby and self-care kind of things. On top of kicking it, reading, playing Sega. One more time.
Our dynamic too is really important to mention because you're balancing. We are coworkers. We don't look at each other like Tom's my boss, I'm his boss. We're coworkers. We're a team.
Sure.
That's a hard understanding to be with your coworker all of the time.
Totally.
And then to discuss mistakes, discuss things that are going to be difficult,
and not take it into the relationship end.
Who's going to handle this, and how are we going to handle that? Those conversations weren't easy at first, but we've learned how to navigate them in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And then definitely scheduling, literally scheduling time,
scheduling outside time stuff.
For us to be a couple. We have a strict date night once a week where we will go for 4 hours and leave. Those kinds of things.
Yeah, Monday is our
Mondays
day.
we didn't know that in the beginning too. In the beginning, we were taking everything. We burn out quick in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it was okay, I know what I like. We did day training for the first year, and that was
It's a whole nother additional thing.
Yeah.
That was insane. We were picking up the dog, having the dog at the house, doing training, and then dropping the dog off 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And that was crazy. We learned we did not like that. That was not something that fit into our lifestyle. So, I mean, learning what works. And I think now we're in a really beautiful groove. Like, we really talk about being in flow state a lot. And like, we found like, where I flow and where he flows, right? Like you flow with certain things really well, and I flow with certain things really well, and it's really cohesive to like the business.
And then giving each other space too. You know, that's kind of a big thing that we have to like really acknowledge, is because we can be like, oh wow, we haven't, like I'll be like, okay, just go out for a few hours because we've been together for the past like 3 days kind of thing. Or you know, a couple weeks ago, Kay went down to Florida, and actually about a month ago, I actually was like, let me take a board and train, and I went out to just like some parks in Michigan and like spent the night with a board and train at a hotel and just like had fun, right? So
that's a really cool part of our board and train too, is like
we could
the
do
dogs.
whatever.
The dogs live with us, so like they
do the things you guys do.
It's nice.
And that was like
that's awesome.
A beautiful opportunity, because like me and the dog stopped in Ann Arbor, walked him through, got some lunch. You know, the dog had car anxiety, so I got to work on his car anxiety going up there. And then like we just enjoyed nature and worked on some of the training and stuff. It was real cool. So,
how do you I think like one of the things that when I first started getting involved in the dog training business, and when we had our first company, Heights Canine, is I would find myself like because business ownership is very, very kind of like lonely, for a better choice of words. I would find myself, second guessing and questioning myself a lot, and getting myself into like these like dark places as far as just like really overthinking stuff, right? And I feel like we haven't necessarily had conversations on it, but I feel like you've kind of struggled with a lot of that kind of stuff before as well. How have you kind of helped to mitigate some of those things while still not, because I think the worst part about it was when I would start questioning things or second guessing what I was doing, I couldn't escape it still, right? So it's not like I could really fully detach from it and go do other things. I needed to kind of sit with it and be okay with that kind of surrounding, and then figure out how I needed to work through it from there. You know?
That's a hell of a question, man.
It still
That's
happens.
Hell of a question, right?
I mean, it still happens.
Yeah, it still happens for both of us. And then the what happens sometimes is like we have to navigate that as a couple, right? If I'm having a dark place or Kay's having a dark place, that's where kind of like the couple does need to kick in, right? And be like, all right,
support system.
But definitely just, I mean, there are those hard would you be talking more about like emotional moments or business moments?
Business moments. I mean, I've never been the most like emotional person about things, but like I would definitely get down on myself over like, a lot of like staffing related things, business related things, all of the things going on there. I would feel like I just kind of lost control of sometimes.
I'll say like when we dropped one-on-ones, I was terrified because I mean, it was our cheaper program, but it was, I mean,
still additional
like,
stream of income.
Exactly. And it was a big one. It was 60%. And I was like, this is a huge risk. Like, I run numbers. I know exactly how many one-on-ones we had and how much money it brought in. But, that was scary. And being an entrepreneur isn't a risk in itself. So you get more comfortable with taking risks. In the beginning, like, don't give up. Like that, once that first year gets past, everything gets a little bit easier. But like, oh shit, it's heavy, it's hard. And when we dropped one-on-ones, I was in a really like, shit, Tom, like, what are we gonna do?
Kate.
But what ended up happening was the board and train program changed, and things started to pick up with that. You know what I mean? Like, there's always that like scary space, and then the scary space always gets brighter with like.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Out.
The other week, this is kind of a interesting one, because like the other week, Kay didn't tell me that she bumped the program up to 3,200, and I was like, and then I'm like,
an important conversation.
Like I got a little. We spoke about it, but then
I went higher than we talked about.
And I was like,
hey, listen, sometimes maybe Tom needed that little push.
And I think I wanted to get to that.
More confident.
I think we do.
How long of a program is that for?
That my weeks, I don't lock
It
on.
ranges, so we say 3 to 6.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
that's
going
cool.
the dogs.
I think
3 to
that's
6 is
unbelievably fair. First off, if you're going to potentially keep a dog for 6 weeks,
appreciate
unbelievably
that.
fair.
Appreciate that.
Along with all of the things that come along with the
one-on-ones.
package.
Yeah. And
My whole thing with pricing was always like, you know, like obviously, like I just had like Krista just asked me the other day. She's like, "Should we raise prices?" I was like, "Because we're really busy right now." I was like,
That's
"I
when
don't
you
really,
know.
but I don't really want to at this point because I think you hit a certain point with your pricing where like once you get past for the board and train program, like that like mid 3,000s range, you start becoming not accessible to everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I want to stay small as
Yes.
well, because I don't want to. I want to charge a price that I can live off of.
Yes.
But I don't want to charge a price that
It's fair
people
for the
in
work.
like where
Yeah.
I live
Yeah.
in rural.
Yeah.
Freaking word.
rural.
Area.
Rural.
I hate it.
Yeah.
It's a hard.
Can't
it is a hard word.
afford me, right? Like
100%.
I want to try and get to that community. who
Most
need it.
people, if they really needed a board and train, can put that on a credit card. Not condoning that. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Anti-Debt over here. But
It
most
could happen.
people, if they really needed to, could afford that. Once you
Yes.
start getting to $4,000, $5,000, that's a big fucking investment in a
investment.
dog.
Yeah.
You know
exactly.
what I mean? Like that's a big investment.
Yeah. But
see it.
like as far as those dark plate, you know, like now we have this kind of dynamic where it's like she pushes me,
Yeah.
and I push her. I push you hard sometimes, but like, but we have that ability to kind of like help each other overcome that. But then at the same time, we make sure we're taking our separate journeys and like,
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
being our own individual and figuring that out ourselves a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That's where like
That's something Tom's been really good at because I can get really lost
Yeah.
at work. Like I could work.
She's
from
like
sun
high
up to
fun.
sundown.
Yeah, like you are high drive. Like you go. Like do
You
computer
can say
work.
it's high functioning anxiety.
But you do a good job at it. Where I'm like, you know, easy. I try to be as easygoing as possible because you know,
This is a marathon. It's not a race.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and mainly it's life. You know, I want to enjoy it. I want us to be happy about what we're doing, and
Yeah.
that's at the end of the day the most part. And if we are feeling like we're hitting those dark places too much, then we try to find a way to really adjust the situation. Right?
Burnout's
Like,
been a huge one.
COVID really, I mean, it depressed me. Like
Yeah.
I had the dogs to work in the board and train, but then I'd be like, what am I doing with myself? Right. And, like to where I had to start doing these self-help things. Like that's when I started getting into like Zen mentality and like getting into that. 'Cause it really did help me.
Yeah.
Kind of like connect with myself, but then it also helps me connect with the dogs way more. Like I
What
have
really,
way more.
what really put you down about it? Was it the like? Did you guys slow down during it?
No.
Did you just the negativity going on? What was it?
Yeah. I would say the negativity to where like, you know, that's where like I'd feel help. I'd be like, what's the point of posting anything on social media? Because all these people are posting all these like COVID things and all these like upsetting political things. And like, I just like, oh, they don't want to think about, like in my mind, I'm like, they don't want to think about that right now.
Like it's hard to stay relevant in like what we
and-
were doing.
and
Like who cares about dog training?
Kay
The
did a
world's
great job
ending.
where we still did the like virtual pack, but at the same time, I'm definitely like, I want to see people happy. I want to see the world happy. And it's hard seeing that to me where it's just like,
I think
bummer,
that's
man.
where almost it's kind of, you know, and this is a hard burden to put on a person, but it's almost our job at that point when things are that dark to provide that sense of relief, especially when, you know, I think there's a reason why the dog training industry got so busy during COVID is because that's all people had to do. They were home, they had their dogs there, and honestly, that enjoyment that our clients got through being able to still work with and train their dogs while everything was like seemingly crumbling around them. You know?
We have a lot of clients that said that about the virtual pack.
Yeah.
They were like,
Yeah.
you know, those Saturday lives gave me something to do all week.
Yeah.
And it was really cool.
Yeah. And then I was just like, I couldn't go out anywhere. And it was just like, I don't know. It really put me in kind of like depressed state.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was kind of hard. That's where like I think I had my biggest issue in time of like running out of business out of home. It's because like I was just like, fuck it. You know, kind of like I had those days.
Yeah.
And Kay wouldn't let those days happen.
Yeah.
No, like I would
You're on
feel
a
that
tight
way, but
ship.
she's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
Good.
I think one of the hardest things with the first like year or so of like me owning a company, and it was very different from me going from Heights to Miracle also, because I've talked about this before. Like when I owned Heights, it never really felt like I was like I knew I owned it, but I never really felt like it was mine, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
It was a weird partnership dynamic we had. There was a lot of separation between what we did and stuff. And I always kind of felt like because of that, I had like a crutch to kind of lean on, you know? For good or bad, right?
Yeah.
So when I transitioned to Miracle, I think that's really where I started needing to navigate through a lot of this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was especially that like 6 months before and 6 months after, you know, the before of that initial panic of like, fuck, I'm putting all of this on myself now.
Yeah.
And the after of just kind of learning how to navigate through some of that stuff. And I think the biggest thing with me when I first started moving through company to company was realizing that like I was positioning myself where I was so relied upon by so many people, right?
Yeah.
Not only just staff, but like clients, right?
Yeah.
There are clients that I am like their last line of defense, right? Yeah. Like if they need things, like I have people that will text me at midnight if they have a big issue or, you know, something bad happens or whatever. Like I'm the person that they reach out. I'm the emergency contact.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I want that, right? Like I don't want to, like I see people talk about all the time. I saw a local trainer post the other day, like, you know, we're not always going to be accessible and you can't reach out to us all the time and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's not the business model I want to provide. Now, listen, we have to have boundaries, obviously, right? That's very important, but I am committing to being the person that's going to be there to help you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And feeling like I was so relied upon made every little issue feel so much bigger.
Yeah.
You know? And I think for me, once I realized that one, those little issues weren't quite as big as I was making them seem in my head. And two, all of those like dark, hard places of like something big is happening, something's changing, et cetera, really was just me finding a hole in things and needing to find a solution for it. And knowing that those solutions were going to make everything so much easier in the long run really helped me to be able to not internalize that stuff anymore.
Yeah. I think, you know, where you're first off, where you're mentioning boundaries, when it comes to your question about early on dog trainers, that's the biggest mistake I feel a lot of us make is because, you know, they just see you as that person, you know, like you could call or text, but at the same time, like, you know, Mondays is our day where even if we let our clients know, even if they go to text us, we're not responding till Tuesday.
Sure.
Like we need that space, right?
Of course. And I'm sure, listen, I'm sure if it's an emergency, you're going to get back to it, right?
Yeah.
But like, 100%. You know,
like I will not read the text. Like, but at the same time, I feel like, you know, boundaries can be pushed because dog training can be so emotional for owners.
I have 19 text messages right now sitting on my phone, right? I do the same thing. I tell all my clients, listen, like if it is like normal work days, you have to give me 24 hours, right? It will take me at least 24 hours to get back to you if you send me a text message. You have my cell phone number, right? You have direct access to me. And if it's an emergency, again, I'll get to it right away.
Yeah.
Right? But we have this personal, intimate relationship. I could be your emergency contact, but it's going to come with some rules.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah. And that's important. And then did we kind of talk over your last question for the most part?
No, we're gonna get to that a little bit more deeply in a minute. Well, we got on it a little bit. First off, Josh. So obviously you've had a lot of ups and downs in the photography world and stuff as well. To that conversation that we were just having, what sorts of things have you done to stay focused, stay on track, and not like internalize or let things get you down too much?
Oh man.
I feel like you have a lot to add to this conversation as well. Like we're all business owners who have all been through some shit, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was kind of talking to them beforehand. I mean, it's just like finding a way of what I wanted to do. And I mean, that was a big mental toll, especially with last year, because I was like, oh, I want to be a food photographer. Like this is what gives me that like goosebumps when I like see it, you know? And then it was like, shut down.
Yeah.
You know?
No food to take pictures
no food ever. And I'm like, God. So yeah, I mean, I'm the same way with you. Like it hit my business. Like it didn't help me at all. It made things a lot harder actually.
Yeah.
And I mean, just trying to keep a positive attitude, like
it's tough, right?
It is, especially like, I mean, if you've listened to the last couple of podcasts, I've let myself go, and I'm just like, I'm trying to get back in the gym and diet, and, you know, so a lot of things bad happen, but I mean, to keep a positive spin on it, like thankfully there was like a couple of bars, like Cloak and Dagger. I talk about them all the time, but like, you know, there's been these certain clients that were just like gung ho, even though there was a pandemic happening.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it was like the small light that I could still see at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
Like, and now, I have to quit that part-time job because everyone's coming back, and now it's like client.
Let's go. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of self, like inner, like reflection.
Yeah.
Is definitely what kept me through the drive through everything.
And like during that, I also tried to look at it as like a time where we all we're living in this very busy world. People are losing, going all over the place. It was also kind of that good
Slow down.
Let's slow down, everybody. Take a look and do like inventory on everything. And I think there was days where I felt down about and then felt like that. And it was really good. That's where I kind of started coming back is when I was like, okay, this is not a bad time. This is more so I got to take inventory and like, it gives you time to prep and slow down and see how things are, really look at detail and everything.
See what you really want to do.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that came out of COVID for us is like, we really looked at like, well, how do we want to do this? Like, you have this blank canvas now. What do you want to reincorporate?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I did. I was just like, kind of tunnel vision onto certain things. Like and then when the food stuff kind of fell off, like I started doing more of my portrait stuff again, which I found out I love a lot too. So it's like
cool.
So it's like now I have in like kind of two tendrils that I want to like really focus on in the next years to come. And I mean, the food stuff already, I mean, I guess product photography is what I should really call it at the end of the day, because I've been doing a lot of like whiskey and stuff like that recently. But yeah, I mean, it just made me excel like tenfold in those areas where it was like I was jack of all trades, like master of none,
Yeah.
That's what I was saying in the first year. We were like, I'll take anything, like whatever you got, I'll train.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was doing.
I heard a thing on, I forget what I was watching, but they were talking about just like, there was this rate of unemployment last year, right? And they were trying to say like this was a great time for people to like really get creative and say like, what do I want to do in life?
Yeah.
And like it sounds like you were able to kind of narrow that down and go for exactly what you're going for.
And
right?
well, and a big thing right now is a lot of the restaurants can't get people in to be staff. They can't staff right now.
Yeah.
And it's because a lot of those people found their passions, because I'll tell you, like, as a former bartender, server, like, you make good money.
Yeah.
But
It's grueling on you, though.
I
it's
used to
grueling.
bartend. It's exhausting.
Yeah, it's
weird hours.
Yeah, weird hours. People suck.
You're on stage.
Yeah.
Like 24.
Yeah, and sometimes you're working, depending on where you work, like when I was at Melt, especially when I came in management, I was 65 hours a week, but it's just like not what you want to do, but you're making good money, so you keep doing it. Which there are people, there's mixologists and they're
but that's their like thing.
Yeah, that's
they
their thing.
They get fulfillment.
Yeah,
out of the socialness.
But 90% is like I'm doing this as like a side thing.
Yeah.
And when they, COVID shut them down, they were like, oh, now I have to like actually focus on the things I wanted to do in life.
Yeah.
So now it's like they're like. I just read it was in Cleveland Scene. It's like we don't, because the draft is coming this week or next week. I don't know which one it is.
Yeah.
But they're like, we don't know what we're going to do because we don't have enough people. And
That's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like how, like I was talking about this with Leanne yesterday. We did a lesson with Hobbs, and like she was telling me the same thing. They're looking to expand and open a brewery and do all these other things, and like they're just having a hard time staffing for even the Pompadour right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And
what Drew was saying too.
I mean, I think this is like a weird tangent out of everything, but at the end of the day, I think it just kind of sheds light on how shitty the restaurant industry is, on how
just unappealing
to their
just in general. Like it forces you as a business owner to ask yourself, like, how do I make this job more appealing for people? Like what things are holding people back from applying? Well, 100%. I mean, I did that over maybe about a year ago or whatever it was, or it was probably right before COVID. Like, we had a couple of key employees leave, and I asked myself, I was like, like what can I do to make this job the hardest job to leave? You know, like what can I do to make it better? Part of that came down to, and honestly, the biggest one, raising our minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
Raise it to $15 an hour. You know, like
People
there's
are gonna
not
wanna
many
work.
jobs that you can come in with minimal to no experience and make $15 an hour.
Yeah.
You know,
100%.
Retirement benefits. We started retirement accounts and we
That's
started doing a
awesome.
retirement match and stuff like that.
Great.
And then figuring out ways to make the workload less grueling. You know, like how can we spread these responsibilities in a way where people knew what to expect coming in and didn't feel overwhelmed?
I love that. I
Yeah.
can't
You know?
wait for that kind of
You did.
strategy.
Even like from when I was there, you did a great job at like how you treat your staff, and that's huge. Where it's like, you know, you already were doing a good job at like, you know, caring for them, you know, making sure that individual needs were noticed and everything.
Yep.
And that's awesome. You keep developing that.
I
you know?
appreciate that. You know, and that's the biggest thing at this point. I would say, you know, back to that conversation about, you know, how to work through certain things and stuff. Those are the biggest things I get on myself the most right now is trying to feel like I'm providing everything I can for the employees, you know?
That's awesome.
And it's really hard. We had a podcast we did, like it was like our third podcast or something where we did like we do an annual like boss review, right? Where everybody writes like what they think about how I'm doing, you know? And some of those are really hard to read sometimes, you know, because like you think you're doing everything you can, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you think you're doing everything you can to help, and you think you're caring and trying to provide this good workplace, but there's always things you can improve on.
Yep, there's always something.
And figuring out how to detach from that and learn from that and continue to improve.
Yeah,
right?
and we definitely catch on that
That's
a
a
lot
good
sooner.
boss.
You know, like being in a relationship, not so much being a boss, but just like we have to evaluate each other at sometimes, and like it's hard because you don't want to carry that and be like, oh, you're doing this wrong as a relationship.
Sure.
And when you do that, sometimes then it's wrong on our part, where it's just like, oh, you're wrong here, and it just like turns into a relationship thing, and we don't want that.
Yeah.
So you know, taking that
We have
personal out of it is
we
really
have
important.
Morning meetings.
Yeah, little morning meetings,
We
coffee.
sit down and at this table at this moment we are coworkers and
Yeah.
we're going to talk as coworkers and
That's
critique
great.
each other.
Yeah, and like
And then when we leave the table, we will no longer
yeah, and I would say like
take anything with us.
I can't say I've had the greatest leaders to teach me how to lead. You know, and we are trying to lead each other at times. Like, I mean, we don't call each other a boss and it is team, but sometimes someone has to take that leadership
100%.
role. And sometimes it's hard in a relationship where you're like, who are you to tell me, right? You know,
Understood.
but it's fun. We do a good job at it.
I think we learn a lot about it through each other. I can't wait to have an employee and like have those like thoughts, you know, like strategically
it's a
how
whole nother ball game.
Oh,
yeah.
Like someone relying on me for the livelihood. Holy shit! Like I
As
can't
past
even
just dogs
imagine.
relying on
Yeah.
livelihood.
It's nuts.
Josh, one point you said that I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for is you said, you know, when everything happened, you had a couple key companies that just like really took care of you, right?
Yeah.
I think that was more on you than you think. I think that you took care of yourself and took care of them, which kept them coming around because those people were still paying you. Those people were still clients and they didn't have to take care. It's not like they were like, this is my son and I need to provide for him kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
You must have realized at some point subconsciously that you knew that's what you wanted to do and you knew you needed to give that your all in order to move in the right direction, you know, that you wanted to. And that's why they kept you around.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely. And I mean, even like when I stopped working at Miracle, because it was just like okay, you know, I got to pull the bootstraps on, like put the big boy pants on, like, you know, and put my nose down and grind, you know, whether there was a pandemic going or not, you know, it was like, okay, this is me. This is my business. This is my money. This is my livelihood, you know? And I guess you're right. Like, it's just it was like a huge, I don't know, the caterpillar turns into the butterfly kind of moment, you know? Like
A tipping point, right?
Yeah, it was a good tipping point. When you're, not that I was against a wall or anything, but it was like, okay, if I'm going to progress forward, it's on me.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember when we got our LLC, like, we had been doing it like without it, and when we got
DL,
the DL,
yeah,
shit, but then we got the LLC, and I was like, all right,
here we are,
like we're full boat, like full stream ahead. It's like shit.
It's something. I mean, like, you know, I would say like there's that whole mentality we get sometimes like, oh, the client just loves us as a human individual, but like really we have things to provide them and they like
they're still
eat it up, right? You know, quite literally they eat it up. You know? So you gotta give yourself, you know, no one makes it for your, you know, no one does it for you but yourself.
That's a great way, man.
Yeah,
I mean, like, we develop these relationships with people and stuff, but they're still paying us, and they're still paying us substantial amounts of money for it, you know? And that's something you got to really, you know, respect, but also understand, you know, they're doing this because I am providing something for them, you know, which I think is the coolest part about it.
Yeah. Being a service provider is a special thing. Yeah.
All right. Last point here. So you answered most of the questions. If you were a brand new trainer right now, where would you be learning from? And what would be your number one or number two pieces of advice you'd give them?
You need to learn psychology. Number one. Like, yes, there's that dog and we have that drive to like be like, I want to get into the dog industry. But there is some deep science to it that isn't always acknowledged for younger people, and they don't notice that. Like, okay, treat training. Like there's
a why.
There's a why to a lot of that stuff. And if you don't find somebody that's going to teach you that why properly, you're going to be missing out on a lot. Right. It's like taking Psych 101. Like if you were to go to college for dog training, like that would probably be one of your first courses in your first semester.
Textbook bullshit.
Yeah. You know, and like, it's textbook bullshit, but like it's important.
It's necessary.
And you know, you can solve way more problems than you think when you when you understand, like, you know, like you talked about like learning theory and operant conditioning and stuff, but like when you take the time and really understand like the deep science to classical conditioning, like you're learning about these chains of association and how you can just unplug all these things and rewire it. It's really cool. And then, you know, so taking the time to understand human psychology will help you understand dog psychology a lot more. And getting your hands dirty. You got to work. You got to grab dogs. You got to grab the dogs and learn how to handle them.
Where did you start? You started as a kennel tech? What'd you say?
If you want to call it that. Yeah.
A kennel tech, dog trainer, daycare attendant, groomer, customer service, professional salesman.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The dog training boot camp. That's what I call it when he describes it. Like you went to boot camp.
And I love the idea of being comfortable with your mistakes.
Yeah.
Like I think you get a lot of trainers are like, oh, this happened, so I'm just not meant to be a dog trainer, or like, you know, I'm not, you know, you have those issues and those hurdles, but mistakes are a great thing. We learn from them and we have to continue that. Right. And I would say those two things, and self-care so you don't get burnt out because like this industry can take you over very quickly.
It's easy to like grind.
You could eat it up and be like, I'm a dog trainer. I'm working with dogs every day. And you'll want to do that work. You'll want to go overboard, but like it can drown you pretty quick. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And your dog training is only as good as you are. Like you are the product. So take care of the product.
Yeah.
I have a few.
Yeah, go for it, man.
I'm 2-3 years in now. Okay. And I just want, you guys mentioned like who you learn from. Like I feel very blessed to have Tom, like to have guided me, to say like, read this. This is what you should learn. Watch these things. Like I've watched everything on Lurberg.
You are the power of training with food.
All of that. Like
to this day, the number one resource I tell new dog trainers to check out is that DVD.
It's bizarre how good it is. It's bizarre.
I mean, it can apply to everything.
Yep.
And it's crazy. So like that, getting a mentor, probably having someone to guide you through it. That's huge.
I think that's key. That was my biggest thing is like finding a couple people in the industry that I knew that I could ask questions.
Yeah. Just ask.
Yeah,
like just find someone.
What I wanted to say too is don't restrict yourself to just a dog training mentor. When you're getting into business and doing this stuff, not just so much business, there's like, you know.
I had a business advisor when we started and he helped me set up to get an accountant, get a bookkeeper, get a lawyer. This is what you should do. Your local chamber of commerce.
Essential,
like, your local chamber of commerce will help you with everything. That's good to know. Want you to be a business owner.
Yeah.
And they will do it for free. Our local chamber of commerce, I don't know why I have to say the whole thing. Our chamber of commerce got me a business advisor for free. The Small Business Administration, paid for the QuickBooks classes that I took. They helped me set up my QuickBooks. They helped us get our contracts, find a lawyer, all of those things. Like,
I would say, those.
Get a mentor for, like, you got to look at dog training like a business.
Well, it is a business.
Yeah, right? And dog training.
I think there's a lot of people like me to where it's like they're unfortunate to not have K, and they don't do all those things. Like,
and nothing will crush your business quicker than not having your ducks in a row.
Like me, I was just like, I get an LLC and I could start training dogs, and they'll tax me later.
I
asked
Tom when I met him, I'm like, "Where are your books?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?"
What do you mean my books?
So definitely, everything's K-saying. I would say take that advice if you want to do it as a business. And like, again, I have the fortunate opportunity to where like I don't have to so much worry about that. We definitely have to discuss it and stuff. Yeah. But like I have that opportunity to train dogs, but not a lot of dog trainers have that opportunity to just play with dogs all day.
Yeah, there are services though. I know in the beginning it's very hard to afford those things, but you can get.
There are initial investments that you should make that you won't make as much money early on, but you won't have to worry about those things. Like, listen, like I am not the most knowledgeable in all that kind of stuff, but I have a team that is very knowledgeable of those kind of things, like that I can rely
assistant.
on. Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I have obviously my CPA who is unbelievable, dots his I's, crosses his T's, and he's way more expensive than doing it through TurboTax, and he's way more expensive than any of these other places, but I know I will never have to worry about anything from that kind of stuff. I have a internal bookkeeper that handles all of the day-to-day quarterly payments and all of the unemployment and CCA and all of that kind of stuff, right? And all I need to do at that point is just get my updates from them every once in a while, get my profit and losses from them so that I could review them and make sure we're not losing money and be aware of what's going on in the business, and write checks.
That's awesome.
So, and then you can focus on your...
So I can focus on building the business at that point.
You got to work on your business and in your business.
Yes.
And just one thing I wanted to add is don't just go to seminars. Like, go try to find a business that you want to work for a minute and work under them.
And why is that?
Because
what's wrong with seminars?
Where do I start?
It's not like
I wouldn't say seminars are bad, but there's
you hit it right there. Yeah. It's not real. It's not real life.
It's not like your day-to-day what you're going to deal with.
Yeah.
Like, granted, there's great information at seminars. Like, there definitely are particular ones I would suggest to go to and see particular people. But at the same time, getting hands-on full-time and not making it your full responsibility to run a business, do dog training, and you be the central person of like, okay, if this dog fails, it's on me. Like, having a team to work with so you could learn on how to troubleshoot and deal with those things, right?
Like making too many mistakes in the beginning are going to put you down.
And then if you're not in that situation, you have to like consult with other people and other trainers that aren't there to see what you're dealing with, right? Rather than, I like the dynamic you have, and that's again where we send a lot of our client, like aggressive people that are reaching out to us to you, is because you guys have a team and everybody's learning together on how to develop skills to solve those problems. And that's a ride that everybody should take and be a team member to learn how to do those things with other people, to help the dogs.
For sure.
When people ask like, how did Tom get into this? And I'm like, he got his hands dirty. Like he was in different, and
you learned the whole industry, everything, not just the dog train. You learned everything about the industry. Because you have to if you're going to have your own business.
I didn't like the job, but I'm thankful for the job at the grooming facility because I had to deal with clients and like problem solve and all of that stuff. So
and
it makes a difference.
And don't put yourself down.
Don't put yourself down too much.
The dogs aren't going to judge you at the end of the day. The people aren't judging you at the end of the day because you're trying to do a really great service in this world. To
the
take
hardest
care of dogs.
And most rewarding industry.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Guys, this was awesome.
It's fantastic.
This was really great. We're like 2.5 hours in, which is pretty impressive.
Thanks for
That's
having
refreshing.
us. I didn't feel like it
I kept seeing like, these podcasts are 2 hours. How am I going to make it through?
Isn't it crazy? Like we probably could go another 45 minutes.
I totally could. We got to go get Tito. Tito.
Hell yeah.
Guys,
all
it
right.
was refreshing to be on.
Where can people find you guys?
LakeErieDogs.com is how you can get in touch with us directly. And then we're on all social media platforms at Lake Erie Dogs.
It's just Lake Erie Dogs.
At Lake Erie Dogs. If you want to learn some stuff about homesteading and baking bread, follow Kay. Can of Michelle.
Can of Michelle.
You didn't bring us any bread.
Yeah, what the hell?
I almost did. I
I
did.
told
and
her to. I'm like, they're
"Is that
foodies.
too
They would
strong?
love
Is
it.
it too strong? I have one at home.
That just
I
means
know.
you have to come
Next
back
time.
now.
Yeah, we would love to.
100%.
We would love to come back, man. This was great.
Hell yeah.
We've been wanting to do the podcast thing for a while, but you guys got the setup, so
Hell yeah.
we'll just ask.
Yeah. Just come on over.
You guys got anything?
We literally are
Make a
open
segment.
every Thursday.
Every Thursday morning.
Oh,
Yeah.
and by the way, what you did last week, it was last week with your 2 clients.
Oh, yeah.
That is it. The shit that I've been wanting to hear on a podcast is like we even talked about it. Like, what if you interview clients? Because that's how you're going to have the great conversations. And I loved that.
Those are great clients
Professionals.
because they're very, very interested in, like, they're past normal clients as far as being interested in dog training.
Yeah.
But we've talked about having just like Joe Schmo client come
Yeah.
on, and talk about their issues and
loved
stuff like that.
I think
which
that's a
would
great
be very
idea.
cool.
they
Those
did
are
good.
real conversations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you guys.
yeah, Doobie.
Okay. First thing, it's been in my head the entire like freaking time that we've been talking. But when he was like, "I'm Italian," and like my family, I was just like saw him like in The Godfather, like, yeah, these the clients to my
come
family
here on the day of my daughter's
I
wedding.
just Tom Tiliapo, Tom Godfather.
We talked
I've been
about it
watching
right now.
Sopranos hard, and like I would walk around the house for a while, just like what was it? When they gave us COVID checks, I was going, okay, it's like Tony Soprano, just like, here's some money for you, buy yourself a new shirt.
I was just like, that's like just how you described it. I was like, that was the most Italian thing you could have ever said.
It was so
the clients feel
smooth.
like a family.
You're like my family.
Yeah.
Okay, Doobie, where are they going to find you?
Josh Dobey Productions Instagram and joshdobeyproductions.com. That's it.
David the Dog Trainer, Miracle Canine Training, miraclecanine.com. Okay, bye.